Okay, we are live 10/20/2024. We've got to pick up the slack from missing Infinite Plane Saturn Day. A lot has happened between then and just now. Like Donald Trump got hired at McDonald's, served a bunch of French fries. Very effective PR stunt. And the people don't even care that it's a PR stunt. They don't care that it's a LARP. It's just a good performance. That's really all they care about. What a good performance. And the way they had the lighting, he had a halo. It's like reflecting off his hair. So all the people who think that Donald Trump is Jesus are going to see that as a sign, chosen by God. All right, we are joined by Armin Ree, the Frugal Snowbird, Diana South, King Ravana. All right, let's see here. We'll give everyone a few minutes to show up. The numbers are a little low at the site. We just started. I just sent notifications. There's about 30, but let's wait for about 3 more people. So here's Trump. I've worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala. And this was a pretty good troll. You know, give credit where it's due.
Tell you what, it's a great franchise, it's a great company, and they've been very, very nice. And you know, if you look at really what's happening, look at the crowd over there. Look how happy everybody is.
He says, quote, this sounds bad, I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala at McDonald's. And is this merely an innocent PR stunt? Is there something deeper?
I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala. Are you going to put this on your...
Serving those life extension Big Macs. And JL had actually said some interesting things about the symbolism of McDonald's and Trump and the clown. And it ties into this artist's work who does this McTrump or McJesus thing.
Thank you for feeding the cracked in fill the blank.
Thank you.
The IPS appreciates the support.
Okay, it looks like the Kraken needs to be brought to the foreground. So the sound is on, but the Godzilla clip had to be moved. So now, when there's super chats, Godzilla will show up on the front. Daniel Penny's lawyers will try to put jurors on that train car and ask, what would you do? So just a heads up, we're looking at what psyops are on the corner in the final month leading up to the election. King Ravana says, Donnie Plump talking about Arnold Palmer's Wong. Yeah, that's right. But that's going to play well with his base. McDonald's Health Food, says Diana South. Yep. Medical misinformation. We're just joking here. We have to be careful what we say. Because I have been suggesting that Big Macs are life extension. It's more likely that their food is designed to keep you as a customer than to take you out. Ronald McDonald Trump, says Jennifer Reeves. Yeah, there's something to it. I saw them putting the apron on him. I thought maybe there's some Masonic implication there. But yeah, you have the Trump Joker clown. And in one of my top 11 Donald Trump predictive programming head wound clips, it's the Snoop Dogg, where he shoots Trump with a fake gun. And it says bang. Which kind of alludes to the Weeknd's video, Save Your Tears, where at the end, he puts a pistol to his head and pulls a trigger, and it's just confetti. And everybody claps. In a very Kubrick-esque, Eyes Wide Shut-like scene. All right, we are joined by JG5, MSO Wind, Esteban, Demetra 101. I'll open up phones too, but there's definitely quite a lot to talk about. Rituals of rocket launching, Space Force's secrets revealed. Now, this is good. This is Diana Pasulka speaking about the rituals behind not just NASA, but Elon Musk's rocketry, and how I've been saying for some time that the space program is just the esoteric cover of this modern iteration of Mystery Babylon, the official religion of the NWO. And you are I would say a parishioner, a practitioner, a worshiper of this cult, if you still believe these flying obelisks are taking you up to heaven.
I don't use his real name, but he does work for the Space Force.
Okay, now this person says, and her name is Diana Pasulka, and this was posted by Irrational Exuberance, thanks to the research there. She says, I don't use his real name, but he works for Space Force. And her information is compelling, so I'm just going to play it in its entirety.
He was a space shuttle mission controller until the space shuttle program shut down. Throughout the whole time period. And he shared with me a lot of the basically rituals that they would do just before launching rockets.
Now, when she says rituals before launching rockets, we're not talking about the weird thing they do where they all urinate on the corner of the bus, and even the female astronauts take a vial of urine and dump it on the bus. Like, this is true facts. No, this is actually the esoteric mystery school stuff, bizarre things, and it just sounds like a cult.
That they still do. So even SpaceX and, Elon Musk's out there, doing his thing. These people that are actually launching the rockets, they're involved in these really interesting rituals where they have to wear the same clothes, they have to eat the same foods, they do a prayer before the rocket launches. These are completely first century Roman theology because they're putting emblems on.
She said first century Roman theology. And she's talking about what they put on the rockets.
Eat the same foods. They do a prayer before the rocket launches. These are completely first century Roman theology because they're putting emblems on their, they have these patches, but they also have the same picture on the patch is also on the rocket, and it's usually a Roman god or goddess. You can't get away from this.
Wow.
All valid points here. All valid points. And the Space Force does have some, looks like a pharaoh. And just to give you context, here we go. This is, in 1961, Soviet pilot Yuri Gagarin, the first man to reach space, asked his bus driver to pull over to allow him to relieve himself. And he urinated on the bus's rear right tire, so now all cosmonauts do the same thing. So it's kind of a tradition. Kind of innocuous compared to the obelisk worship, the covert black magic that they're really doing. But it's there. And one other thing, because I remember Candace Owen recently converted Catholic, she had said that NASA is a pagan religion. And she's right about that. But I'm thinking, no, they are actually part of the same system of beliefs that she's a part of. And when Buzz Aldrin was on the moon, one of the first things he did is he brought out some sacrament, wine and bread. Yep, Buzz Aldrin took Holy Communion on the moon, and they kept it quiet. NASA worried the Christian ceremony might draw unwanted scrutiny. Apollo 11 Eagle lunar lander landed on the moon, let's see, July 20th, 1969. Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had something to do, which was wait. And while they waited, yes, Aldrin performed the sacrament on the moon. He was in the Webster Presbyterian Church. And they sent him with a kit. And he describes how the wine floated around in the chalice. Esteban says, the guy is super shilly with his backward hat. Everyone under the sun is on his show. Yeah, I find backward hats to be kind of a tell. A very common thing with the feds. Backward hats and neck beards. If you ever see me growing out my neck beard and wearing a backward hat, it means I've sold out. Reverse History said, huge intended irony as De Niro calls Trump a clown in his Trump derangement. Good call. He calls him a destroyer as well. While his Joaquin Phoenix Joker Travis Bickle stand-in is literally a clown. Excellent. Jamature 101 says sigil magic. Yeah, it's a thing. Sigil magic, I would call it the... I guess that's pretty much what we're looking at is a ceremony disguised as sending rockets into, quote, space, but really it's a modern take, a science fiction take on the Gnostic Catholic Mass. And we don't know what they're doing behind closed doors while the public is watching the rocket launch up there. If you want to have an idea, watch Strange Angel about Jack Parsons. It was an ABC series where they made pretty strong connections there between Thelemic sex magic and the advent of modern rocketry. And it should be added that SpaceX is not really separate from any of this, and their symbolism and iconography goes just as deep. I'm not exaggerating when I say NASA's an Egyptian mystery school, disguised as something else. King Ravanus' backward hat, neckbeards, and FBI-style dance music. Or bad rapping. Bad rapping is also kind of a tell. Mango Penguin says, Tim, did you hear or read the lyrics to Hopium for the Masses by Ministry? No, I'll have to check it out. I know Ministry, we're talking about Thelema, which is Aleister Crowley's religion. Ministry has a song called Psalm 69, which is a Crowley reference, and Golden Dawn, where they have recordings of Crowley reading John Dee's calls to the ethers, Enochian magic. And every one of our iPhones is a black mirror, a scrying mirror. And it's probably two ways. Like, it's safe to assume that you don't have any privacy. Does anybody here actually believe they have any privacy inside or out? It's kind of a joke. Anyway, great video there. This is Rituals of Rocket Launching.
Did you see the one Elon?
And this might not be unrelated. I had this book called Secret Religion of the Elite. And on the cover it has the Washington Monument next to Wernher von Braun's Saturn V. And the rights to this book were actually sold to another publisher, and they just contacted me to tell me that the book has been pulled, that Amazon has taken down their account, so that book's no longer available. Like, I wonder why that is. Heads up here, if you're in Atlanta, 2024 Homeland Security Critical Infrastructure Conference, the AFCEA, Homeland Security Conference on Critical Infrastructure, with a large-scale cybersecurity exercise on Election Day. So you know what this means. They use drills to put their assets in place, to rehearse the PSYOP, to get their media contacts in place, the ones who are insiders, whenever the media decides to put a perception management stunt ahead of factual reporting. And if you recall, Cyber Polygon was scheduled to take place, another tabletop exercise analogous to Event 201, where they could plan for some kind of cyber infrastructure failure on a wide scale. And what happened? They canceled the event, and on that day it happened for real anyway. So they made the drill go live. It was a live exercise. Diana South says, privacy is a thing of the past. Yeah, and the way they got rid of it was not force. They didn't have to force anybody to broadcast, to publish, to dump the contents of their minds onto the interwebs. They changed society. They just flipped a switch. 1984 is this nightmare scenario where everybody is under scrutiny, nobody has any privacy. And here we are, 2024. Nobody wants it. They get paid for giving it away. They commodify it. And privacy is under, it's pretty much a matter of compelling state interest that we don't have privacy, because we got to know, for you to get on an airplane, do you have any explosives in your pants or in your luggage? So we have to pat you down. We all accept that. That's the price of maintaining some level of safety. Lose some of our privacy, no big deal. Fast forward 19 years, we have the big pandemic, and now we have to know what's in your blood. So we go deeper than just beneath the clothes. Now we got to know what's in your bloodstream. And the next phase after that, when it comes to maximizing safety and sacrificing privacy, because that used to be private medical misinformation, but now your status is just, it's known one way or the other, depending on whether or not you comply. Your opinions are no longer secret. And then finally, mind viruses. They've moved to the area, well, we have to know what's on your mind. Maybe this is where they get into social credit scores, because I think mine is in the red. But mind viruses, what websites have you visited? What have you tweeted? And they will be able to know. So, in other words, no more privacy. They've been eroding that. Algae Rhythm says there was a multinational drill in Christchurch, New Zealand on the day of the alleged mosque attack. Look up Snoopman Christchurch Decoded. I will, thank you. And there were two drills that day. One of them involved a bomb. One of them involved a pit maneuver. So if you look into the Christchurch massacres, shout out to PewDiePie. First of all, the second video is super fake. You have bodies getting up off the ground. You have a guy walking around with a spray bottle with fake blood in it. So we've already analyzed this one to death, but Brenton Tarrant was arrested, apprehended after a pit maneuver. And that's when they run you off the road and pull you out of the car. It just so happened that the police in New Zealand there, in Christchurch, were doing drills for pit maneuvers. They were already dressed up, they were ready in place, and he just happened to be driving by, so they got him. They said it was an eerie coincidence or a fortuitous coincidence, but as a rule, it's axiomatic to say there are no coincidences on the world stage. Kevin Mooring says, Cuba is in a blackout for 3 days, maybe a test run. Thanks for the info. And again, this is November the 5th, cybersecurity exercise. And I found this after the last live stream. But at the end of the last live stream, I was talking about November 5th significance here, because that's the date in Batman that you have the right-wing internet fringe extremists activated to blow up some dam and flood New York, flood Gotham. So Gotham's underwater in 11/6. They flood the polls, which was, not coincidentally, the 2022 GOP's slogan, flood the polls, flood the polls. So flood the polls, and then in the Batman movie, with the Riddler inciting his activists, they flood the polls. Remember, too, the Riddler connections are deep. The Riddler, the young Riddler, looks like Thomas Crook, the shooter. And the media has described Crook as an enigma. The Riddler's name is Enigma. Not a coincidence. The Riddler's singing Ave Maria in his cell. And at 6/11, 84 days after the Butler shooting, Trump is doing a moment of silence, and then they have that song. Someone sings that song, which is the Riddler song. So we've been talking about these connections back and forth for some time. So the fact that Batman has November the 5th pegged as the election day that they flood is highly significant. And some have suggested it might come from, like, I'm Groypers, far-right fringe type, disenfranchised because Trump doesn't love Hitler enough or something. You can never satisfy those people. But also the Penguin series, which is out right now. And by the way, Colin Farrell deepfaked me. I had no idea that was Colin Farrell. So, as studied as I am on deepfakery, and as much as I talk about media literacy, I got fooled by Colin Farrell and Penguin. But in the most recent episodes, they've reiterated that flood. So that's the same date as this. And Atlanta significantly ties into the Avatar Way of Water by James Cameron, where he has the water-based Na'vi who are kind of like Atlanteans. And the story of Avatar 2 mirrored what happened in Atlanta between Cop City, the environmentalist protesters, and BLM, and this merger between BLM and environmentalists pushing back against the police. It mirrors what happened in Avatar 2. Not a coincidence. We've talked about these overlapping stories. But my point, bringing that up now, is that Atlanta is where they're having a large cyber security exercise. I'm going to open up phones here in just a moment. Okay, let's see. Esteban says, I posted Tim's Christchurch video in a Radiohead group where some guy said he was going to watch them. They reported me. I beat the report, then they blocked me. Well, that video that they shared, they made it illegal to hold it. And they were threatening arrest. And it wasn't because it was so shocking or incendiary. It's because it was so fake. It was squibs. That's what I learned about squibs. I didn't know what squibs were until Christchurch. And there's a variety of ways that these things work, but a lot of them are just remote. Like a squib is basically a mechanism for squirting out blood or making it look like a piece of someone's head or their body has been blown off. Very simple contraption, but these days they have them wired. You could just push a button. Bluetooth squibs. I think the MAGA hats, they have the 4547. I think there's something in there. If you have a MAGA hat with 4547, just for my sake, just squeeze it where the hyphen is. And let me know if anything comes out, because I think it's got some kind of like a ketchup packet or something in there. That's why Trump went over to McDonald's. He's probably getting ready for the next fake shooting. Had to stock up on ketchup packets. Oh yeah, November 5th, Tracy Banton, that's your birthday. I was going to mention that. No, I was going to mention that Alan Moore, V for Vendetta, November 5th. Remember the 5th of November, that whole gunpowder plot? Well, here you have a domestic terror situation. V for Vendetta, November the 5th. Alan Moore, Metascriptor, Watchmen, It's one of his products, one of his stories. But Alan Moore is a big-time metascriptor. He was into Aleister Crowley when he was like 12. He's an excellent writer, storyteller. I learned about Jack Parsons from him in one of his comics. But the November the 5th date ties into him, and that movie, V for Vendetta, contained copious predictive programming for the lockdowns of 2020. So there we have another 11.5 connection, both the Batman universe and Alan Moore's fictional universe, V for Vendetta, both pointing out that specific day. Algae Rhythm says November 6th. Okay, well, you're a 116. I have that same problem. R. Cook says, cybersecurity exercise took down my California internet last time. Yeah, whenever I see the word security, it just tells me some kind of an agenda. They're trying to convert society into like maximum security, open asylum. That's why I say it's worthless to try to get truthers to resist. And why are you organizing? Why are you mad? Why are you triggered about fake issues? Because the people who are in the alt or mainstream box cannot be organized in any meaningful way to make a change regarding the world stage itself. They're playing in the game. Strange game. The only winning move is not to play, war games. There is no winning position from within the world stage, and it becomes increasingly clear as we get closer to the election that a lot of people can't let it go. Catching up on your comments really quick here. Busy56 said, I was rewatching Fight Club and heard early in the film, theater of mass destruction. I've been saying theater of Psywar, but I like theater of mass destruction. Now, in the first Auto Hoax Con, Reverse History did a pretty good breakdown. I mean, we've been talking about this stuff for a long time, but 9/11 Predictive Programming has a scene. There's some programming in Fight Club, but one of the scenes has the main character is talking about gelatin explosives covering the columns of various buildings. And these two buildings behind him that blow up later, those are the Twin Towers from Century City. Same architect as a WTC. So the movie has Twin Towers and a mention of gelatin explosives. So you can connect that with Gelatin B, the artist group that was in the WTC leading up to the event. And that's the group that is suspected, and I think provably faked all the jumper footage. And if you didn't know, there weren't any jumpers. If you're a jumper truther, you need to catch up. Oh, Canadian emote. Yeah, that's what I thought you mentioned. I saw California. I was like, what does he mean, CA? You meant California? Yeah, Canada. Because it was in Canada when Cyber Polygon's exercise went live, and you had a concert by, was it The Weeknd or Justin Bieber? One of them was having a concert, and it got canceled. Let me pull that up. That was in July of 2021. And at the time, I figured, okay, here we go. Cyber Polygon. I'm pretty sure it was The Weeknd, but there was some kind of a shutdown that canceled his concerts, which means that every single person who paid for a ticket was then made aware of the event. I mean, what a disruption. All right, moving on. Kevin Mooring says, 9/11, the psyop that keeps on giving. Yeah, it's probably one of the more important psyops to study, but I think it's also equally important not to focus too much on one or two or three events, because all of them have all these narratives attached that have scapegoats. Like, these guys did 9/11, be against these guys. They didn't do 9/11, because 9/11 wasn't done. It was a movie. And if you're living in that movie, you're in their box. That's why I don't deal with identity politics. I don't really take a lot of these things seriously, because they're within the box where they are in the movie. It's an alternate reality game. LG Rhythm says, truthers need a jump start. Yeah, they've been given a a bad methodology on purpose, by design, where they were told the way to perceive media is to reject the mainstream and accept the alternative or assume it to be true, but lacking the right scapegoat. In other words, everything's a false flag. The problem with that is, if you blame everything on the deep state or George Soros, you scapegoat. But every one of these scapegoat stories assume the thing happened, which means somebody had to have done it. But what if it's not a whodunit? What if it is a what is it question? And I've been saying that for some time. It is a Princess Bear Poker says, what if they gave a psyop and nobody came? See, that's a really good point. And I'd once said that if 9/11, we'll go back in time to that particular event, if that happened early in the morning, 8:46 a.m. If that had happened on another day where we were distracted, or if there was some kind of, I don't know, anomaly, everybody slept in, it wouldn't have had the same impact. The power of these things is in focusing everyone's attention at the same time. It's about synchronizing the mass mind to the news event, which has already been entrained. The mass mind has been entrained but to have this predisposition to believe what's on the news because they've seen it so many times through the vehicle of fiction. Movies, books, music, they've been repeating in a form of propaganda, like I liken it to advertising, but they've been repeating all of the main stories and psyops of our lives ahead of time. Like, we've been prepared for everything. So if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, just look at the news, or rather look at the movies from 20 years ago. Maybe even concurrent programming might be a better indicator today. It's like Netflix is about sometimes between a year and maybe a month between watching it on Netflix and it coming true or having specific relevance. Yeah, Nicotramus says, the best advice I got from Tim was subtract, always subtract. Yeah, we are taking the negative route, the subtractive. So instead of saying the main, like the way that I typically describe it is the masses, the mass mediated mind, they sit there with their noses pressed up against the screen. The truthers can see that it's not true. So what do? They go through the screen. They go deeper into a subset of the mainstream story. And this is the conspiracy realm. But they added, they didn't subtract. So instead of suggesting to them, or instead of it even popping up as a possibility to them, that maybe this event was fake, they're chasing second shooters. They're trying to figure out, no, it wasn't this person. It was the shooter on the water tower that got Trump. Because now they're adding to the story. So I refer to the truthers as MSM plus, as opposed to just MSM, which is mainstream mediation. What we are doing is MSM minus. We don't go into that plus territory. We're not looking for second shooters. We're looking at what they presented and asking, what can we subtract from the initial presentation? What isn't backed by any kind of facts? The subtractive route is one of suspending judgment until we get better information, and we end up believing less, which means we're not wasting our time. You know how many of these big channels with millions of followers were chasing second shooter stories? Like last time I turned into InfoWars was 7/14, and I saw Owen Schroyer talking about the water tower, and I predicted that. I said everybody in the controlled op right is going to talk about second shooters. It's predictable, and you shouldn't be that predictable. If you are, it means that they got you following their program. Okay, phone number is on the screen. It is 505-510-4226. I'll go ahead and open up phones now. And after this live stream, we're going to be recording episode 4 of the IPS Deep Think Tank. So if you want to get in there, we're going to talk about next week's Hoax Con number 2. So today's really the last day to get on the schedule. If you want to be a part of Hoax Con number 2, I'll put out one more notification, a newsletter, and anyone who wants to participate as a speaker, to present something, or if you want to promote something, this would be a good time to get in touch. LG Rhythm says, non-voters are also participants. The system doesn't give a damn whether one votes or doesn't. Agreed. Which is why I'm voting for Kamala. It's the only way to make it count. I have to make an antagonistic vote.
Hey,
Hey, what's up, caller?
it's Esteban. How is everybody?
We are doing great. And who is this?
It's Esteban.
Oh, Esteban. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna be real quick today. I think, just to give you, a call in. I didn't know I was gonna call in. You know what I was thinking? So there's this. I was talking to Reverse History's channel yesterday, and you know what I would love to do? I was talking to Reverse History about this. Remember I brought up Walter Kilner, the Human Atmosphere book. He's mentioned in the Etheric Double about the blue cobalt glass that used to be in doctors' offices. Are you familiar with that?
No, why don't you bring us up to speed on that?
Okay, so in the book The Etheric Double, when I got into all that spiritual stuff back in the day in 2013, there's this book that I read, Man Visible Invisible by C.W. Leadbeater, and another book called The Etheric Double. And The Etheric Double is a very interesting book. It basically goes over like a lot of the chakras and stuff. There's a section in there on Kundalini. But then there's a section on Walter Kilner's blue cobalt glass. And his history has it that he created this glass that's like a double pane window, and inside of it is a blue chemical. In fact, if you looked it up online right now, you could probably find it. If you just look up blue cobalt glass, and there's a special chemical that is used in this glass. Let me find the name. It's called diacinine A. Let me make sure I spell it right here. Nope. Here, Walter Kilner. Diacinine. Okay, so this is a banned substance. And before I research too much into getting it, and here's what I'm thinking. You live in Mexico. You live near Mexico.
Correct.
I would love to go down there and get this chemical. So this chemical, what they did in the doctor's office is they did tests. They had a clairvoyant reveal issues that were on the patient, and then they had a regular layman, someone without psychic sight. And they would see the same thing. So it would show the aura. You could see where the energy problem was in the human being. They made this chemical. They banned it. You can't get it because it's a prohibited chemical. And I didn't want to search too much on it on my computer here, but I'm pretty sure we're being listened to right now. But wouldn't that be great if we could recreate that and remove the skepticism? Because they make all that psychic stuff look stupid with people like they dump it's just like you said with when we get onto something, they counter it to guardrail it. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get that chemical, recreate what Kilner did, and at least it's kind of like where rubber meets the road, because some people can't see into that type of stuff, have that psychic sight.
Okay,
but,
okay, I see what you're
I
saying
would love
here.
to do that.
I think that we have this vehicle here. That's why I have been promoting this idea of the IPR Press Club and distributing press passes, because we need to do our own investigative reportage, our own deep dives. And I'm not here to regurgitate mainstream news, but to focus on those topics that we think are worth digging deeper on. And one example would be, and one thing I'm actually looking into myself, is this area where Leadbeater got into, the idea, the occult, the New Age stuff, what's really behind a lot of this symbolism. And this is something else that I'd be interested in getting behind, which means we just need someone who wants to do it, and then we can essentially get the crowd behind it.
All right, so I'm down to do this because I love to ruffle feathers, and I have no problem having them know that it's me who's doing it. Because I think they're all cowards, man. All these people, they're not what they claim to be. It's like the story of the village, man. These people, they're charlatans. So anyhow, how would you go about into research and getting this chemical? Should I contact the university?
That's where I would start. And as long as you're in touch and keeping us informed, I mean, we will definitely get enough people behind whatever you want to look into. Like, I think it's important to do our own fact finding on everything. I want people to go observe a rocket launch. I think that would be fantastic. I wish I could go to Antarctica if I had the money, but no one's offered me the ticket, even though I've said I'll fill in if nobody else wants to. I'll take the penguin tour. But no, I'm totally behind it. And so I'm going to put down a list of things for IPR deep dives, things that we're interested in getting behind. So I'm going to take a note here, Esteban, and we'll take the first
I'm
steps.
putting the name of the chemical in the group. I'm sorry, brother. What did you say? You're taking a note of that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see if anyone else has any ideas on this.
Yeah, because I would love to, I don't like doctors. I think they push these prescriptions and stuff, and they just want people to be stupid. Now, how wonderful we could be if we could create a big glass, like obviously it would have to be like a sliding glass door type of size glass, but fill it with this chemical, have people stand behind it with issues and show, here, there's where the issue is in your energy body. Yeah, you have this energy body. Oh, they don't want you to know that though. So that's all I have to say. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'll contact the university and try to dig into this. But I have a feeling we're going to have to go to Tijuana, man, to get this. I mean, will even be legit stuff. Who knows?
Interesting stuff. And for people who don't know, I've read some C.W. Leadbeater, and we're talking about essentially some kind of a rudimentary science, or maybe it's advanced, a science of the human soul. And is there one? And, modern science, we don't have one. We're just apes with massive egos, and we're not supposed to take this stuff seriously. Anyway, thanks for the call, Esteban. Oh, go ahead.
Yep, no problem. No problem, brother. Bye.
Okay, Kevin Mooring said, let me know when the phones are open. I saw your call in the backup. Go ahead and call back in. R. Cook says, Antarctica, pet the penguins, I'm down. Yes. And on the screen is a meme that I've been seeing going around. It says, David Weiss, a globe would have a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. He's invited to Antarctica at no cost, and he says no. And there's an entire 2-hour video I watched the other day, just nothing but a bunch of top-tier flat earthers, mostly domers, talking about the significance of the 24-hour sun, and all of them refusing to go to Antarctica.
Oh.
Infinite Plane Radio.
It's me, Tim. Kevin. I hardly ever call in, but we got to go over this Batman shit real quick.
Yeah, let's go over the Batman stuff.
Okay. So, you remember when Kamala came in and she had the purple suit on, and everybody connected that to the Simpsons and Marge, like the clothes, the purple suit. She's been wearing the purple suit like the Joker this entire time, laughing and cutting up.
Okay, that should have been an obvious one, and somehow I missed that. I saw the blue suit, and I thought Lisa Simpson, and you're right. I was just at the Halloween store, and they have all these Joker suits, and now that I think about it, that would explain the laughter. It's not Kuru. That's a Joker character thing.
She's laughing. And then I made a comment earlier, I don't know if you know, but next weekend, Trump's supposed to be at the Pittsburgh Steelers football game. And they have the same color uniforms as in The Dark Knight when Bane blows up the football stadium. And Trump's been quoting Bane recently, and it's all playing in.
Oh, that's right. I played that clip last time. Trump speaking right out of the Batman 2012.
Look up the Pittsburgh Steelers colors and look up the team on the movie. It's just, I always thought that it was in Pittsburgh, but it's a made-up world. But the same colors, and they've ramped up security because Trump's supposed to be at that football game. More Batman tie-ins.
Okay, interesting. Have you seen the Brothers? I think it's called Brothers Grimsby clip where Trump is in a football stadium, and they have this bullet's eye view of Trump getting a head wound during a football game. It's just some little clip that I saw. Maybe you've seen it, but not the first time Trump's been associated with stadiums and this type of thing.
I just think that we're leading up to some really great meta scripting coming soon to you. I mean,
I agree.
Days until election? How many days?
Just 3 weeks or so.
3 weeks? I think it's like a countdown. You know what I'm saying? And this whole Batman shit does tie in. I don't know how it does. I know it sounds stupid to everybody else that don't see it, but it does tie in.
I have
Totally
a
tie in.
I have a plan for Auto Hoax Con number 2. My focus is going to be describing what I mean when I say that we live in a fictional universe, that it's a Disney universe, Planet Netflix. But the reason why we're seeing the constant, consistent, and even predictable correlations between the Batman universe and what's happening in politics is they're using the Batman series and its symbolism and iconography to convey their narratives in a dramatized format. Left versus right, Joker, Batman representing the fringe. Joker is the people who fall through the cracks, the poor, fighting back against the system. Antifa. Batman represents like right-wing, reactionary, privileged, money, vigilante at the worst. But they've been doing this intentionally. So they have superimposed onto the news the Batman universe in many ways. And this is, again, to entrain the masses and our minds in order to see the news events as a logical consequence of what we've been filling our heads with for the past few years. So we've been living in Gotham, basically. And whatever they pull off, it's going to mirror the movies. And people are going to say, well, art imitates life. And I'm like, well, no. In this case, I think it's safe to say that the psyops that we're seeing are built upon the art that came before. And that's a consistent thing. And the art is basically, in this case, largely the Batman universe.
Do you think that, you know how the Joker 2 has a negative response, that Trump is going to overtake the Joker? Was that part of it?
That's interesting. Let me think about that, because Joker 2 was being filmed at the courthouse on 4/4/2023 when Trump was inside, and the public driving by thought the crowd was there for Trump. So they've overlapped these two things, and it could be the case. It could be. I don't have any solid predictions other than civil war being the most likely scenario, where Trump gets in and the left is so mad that they create some massive conflict. But that's what it kind of looks like, just based solely on predictive programming, not on anything else.
Like civil war is going to come, whatever side wins. Like the other side, they were all happy when we were all sad on this side. Now we're all going to be happy and they're going to be sad, but you see how they act when they're so sad. They go irrational, like the Joker.
Oh yeah, they get so peaceful. Absolutely. You're right. The Joker. And you know what? Now that I think about it, Joker came out 2019, late 2019, and it preceded 2020 and contained a lot of the elements that we were to see. The masked uprising. And in Joker, it was clown masks. And if you look at it from this perspective, the masks that we saw in 2020 were kind of clown masks. We were being clowned. But certainly that was a leftist uprising movie. And this does kind of have that same element here. It would follow that Joker 2 is going to foreshadow what's to come. That's why I said, as bad as the movie is, or some people say it is, its predictive programming value should not be overlooked, especially since it's already been overtly connected with the world stage events, talking about the crowd for Joker 2 outside the Trump trial. Like, that is just... And then even Lady Gaga, her connection is interesting, considering she sang the national anthem, was it, at the inauguration for President Joe Biden?
Well, if you think about it, like, just them showing you the Joker ain't that important, going with the script, you know what I'm saying? Like, Trump said, I'm Batman. What? You know? And I'm just thinking all these negative reviews for the Joker 2, which, I don't know, more people wanted, like blood and gore and more action in it. You got to take it at face value. And then it gets negative reviews. There's other movies out there that only spent like a few $1 million and outpassed them in the last few weeks, which makes me think that they're trying to show you that the Joker ain't all that maybe Batman is.
I kind of got the idea there might have been some purposeful iconoclasm, and they do the whole, like, Joaquin Phoenix in general is Christified in many of his movies. They overlap Christ typography and symbolism, and they have in all his movies. Even 8mm, he gets literally crucified. Then he plays Jesus, and he gets crucified. And in this one, towards the end, and this is sort of a spoiler alert, I guess, but, you know, we're pro-offering spoiler alerts for the world stage. So you can't complain about our movie spoiler alerts. But there is a very Jesus-like scene at the end when they strip him. And then he has the white underwear on. It looks like what Jesus was wearing in most of the artwork before they do whatever they're doing to him, before they, I guess they kill him, or it's kind of ambiguous to me. The whole movie is very ambiguous, but I think it's by design.
Like, you know, the movie Civil War, where like the media was like a focal point, right? Meaning they're going to be right there taking a picture when the president dies. Kind of like
Okay, yes.
CIA agent that took the bullet whizzing by Trump's head. You know what I mean? It all plays into it.
That was the main point of the movie. So the point of Civil War, of course, directed by the guy who wrote 28 Days Later, Rage Virus, but the main point of it was the Civil War as seen from the perspective of the news media, and nobody cared. A lot of people didn't care that the war was happening because they weren't watching the news. So they made a martyr out of the media. They made it clear that the Trump side of the fence hates the media. And at the end, they wanted to televise this event. And they had a very specific request that a black woman soldier do the deed. So very blatant agitprop and propaganda. It's not even difficult to interpret this stuff. So yeah, Kamala kills Trump while Trump's in the White House in Civil War.
Then you have Elon Musk with this. You know what I mean? It's another layer to the Terminator. Machines taking over. They're going to take our jobs. No, nobody's taking your job except Donald Trump. He's at McDonald's tonight.
Yes, yeah. Oh, he made some of the best fries ever, I'm sure. I was watching that, and you know, it's genius trolling, and he is kind of funny. You know, he is a TV star. It's a reality TV show.
He's playing the Joker right now. That's all he's doing is trolling people. Like, he even sent her a happy birthday message today. You know that wasn't sincere.
Good connections, and for people who haven't followed this, the Q movement has connected Trump to Batman since 2016. And he did tell a kid he was Batman. But that's been a staple of Trump lore from his diehard fans and worshippers, that he's Batman and that he's got this double life and he's fighting the deep state. So there's a lot that goes into this thing with Batman and Joker. I kind of correlate it with the Masonic pillars, black and white, B and J, Boaz, Jacob, Batman, Joker. It's a controlled dialectic, and it's always in play. And right now it looks like the Joker movie is likely, like you said, maybe signifying Batman having some kind of a victory at this point.
Let's keep our eye on that Pittsburgh Steelers Trump attendance next weekend. Tim, thanks for taking my call. I love the chat. I love you, bro. Keep it real.
Thank you for the information, too, and have a great day. Thanks for calling. It's Kevin Mooring. Appreciate it, as always. Yes, this Batman universe overlapping the news is all by design, and we have way too many examples of this. So when we talk about predictive programming, it's not just any movies. You know, these are movies that are intentionally released at certain times, targeting demographics. The imagery, the messaging is meant to convey certain messages to prepare us for what's to come. And the Batman franchise is totally opened itself up to be a platform for government propaganda to prepare us for various psyops. And this goes back to The Dark Knight Rises up to the most recent. And it's been a pattern. And, you know, the Nolan brothers are huge in predictive programming. In fact, Trump did he go to Aurora recently, right? Where we had Dark Knight Rises on its premiere was in Aurora when you had the Joker shooter with the orange hair come out. And when you talk about predictive programming, as caller alluded to, it doesn't make sense to people when you say, hey, look, this is just like from the Batman movie. Look at all these connections. People don't have a context in which truth makes sense. They're in the box. These coincidences are just coincidences to them. But to those of us outside the box, we know there are no coincidences on the world stage. But my objective for the next Auto Hoax Con is to make sense of the use of fictional universes as a vehicle for introducing what we call predictive programming. And I have many examples. I've outlined the talk I'm going to give, but I'm going to actually have my video content and everything ready to play. Andrea on board says the Matthew Perry story had lots of Batman mentions. Yep, and we're coming up on the anniversary of that. Matthew Perry's birth or death date will be 8 days from now, 10/28. Highly significant date. Isn't that the first date of the first Q drop? Great connections here, though. But at this point, you can understand why people don't understand it. Like, it's not in their frame of reference to include the entertainment as some kind of... in a way, it's almost like they're so compartmentalized, I guess, that they just don't connect the entertainment to the news. They see these as coincidences. And that's one of the things I'm focusing on. The number of times where the media has been aware of the eerie coincidences and it remarks on it. I have many examples of this, like white noise, leave the world behind, many examples there. But I'm going to demonstrate just how often this happens. And you can't just explain it as life imitating art, because it's too many coincidences. It is psyops imitate art. And that's pretty much it. The psychological operations are so easy to believe because they use art. They use these fictional universes to precondition you, to sell you on ideas, to put things into the realm of possibility that aren't really there. Jessica Lynn says 10/28, Bill Gates' birthday. Yes, 10/28, we have 1,028 days left until the world ends, according to the environmentalists. Environmentalists don't care about chemtrails. What does that tell you? Just a side note. 10/28, hugely important date according to all these various Q-related events. I mean, the Q drop on that date was big, but counting from 10/28, all kinds of interesting connections have popped up. The Q thing is real. The story that Q tells is fake, but the whole thing is a psyop. It's run out of the White House. The QAnon movement was a psychological operation run out of the White House, kind of like, I wouldn't say directly under Trump's control, but it's part of his outreach. He did a lot of pandering and dog whistling to conspiracy theorists, and Q was how they made that happen. But what a lot of the Q people don't know is how unoriginal their conspiracy theories really are. And it's just rehashed from other conspiracy theories. And I find some people are so brainwashed. I've been in this debate with someone over whether or not this man on the screen is a time traveler. So this guy named Axel Vasa, who does a lot of Q droppings, that's how he makes his living. He says this is proof that time travel is real. And he has a picture of this guy in a bow tie, messy hair, and a beard. Now, this guy that we're looking at here happens to look exactly like Ingersoll Lockwood. Ingersoll Lockwood is the author of the Donald Trump time traveling, or Baron Trump time traveling adventures. So people think this is Ingersoll Lockwood, who died more than 100 years ago. And I've been here dispelling this myth. So again, some people think he's JFK Jr. They can't decide, is he JFK Jr. or is he a time-traveling author? But you may remember him from Mike Lindell's Cyber Symposium, where he was overturning the election. And this was the subject matter expert. So at first they thought he was JFK Jr. Here he is with Donald Trump. Now they're convinced he's a time-traveling author. Well, I know who this person is because he was kicked out of a university he was teaching at here in New Mexico. And this is what he looked like before he got involved in QAnon. Clean shaven, didn't have that beard, short hair, doesn't look at all like Ingersoll Lockwood. So what happened here? How did he go from that to this? I found some intermediary stages before he had grown his hair all the way out, before he went full-blown Q. So this is his transition. This was him before Q. Then he got the gig after he lost his job at the university. And he dressed up. Now he's cosplaying as a time-traveling author. And so I'm here debating with Susie's Corner. And I'm letting her know. I said, no, he's a professor. And she says, you're saying, and she's totally incredulous, you're saying this is a younger photo of him? I'm like, yeah. And she says, these have to be two different people. It's pretty obvious that this man is not the same. And I said, well, I have some evidence. And Susie said, not interested in your evidence. We can do our own investigations. I know what I've seen. Are you saying that evidence as your answer to my question, and you know this because what? So she word salads a little bit. Then I said, this guy is a grifter pretending to be Ingersoll Lockwood for gullible people like you. There will be no great awakening, and you have been pulled into a deeper slumber. To which she replied, shut up. Unless you can talk without character assassination, take your high-mindedness elsewhere. So I'm trying to do her a favor, because she thinks that she's looking at a time-traveling author here as part of Trump's Great Awakening, when he's really just a guy who got in trouble for some hacking scandal and then grew a beard and LARPed for the Q movement. They don't like it when you tell them their delusions are delusions. They live in a fiction. We talk about fictional universes. The Q-universe is user-generated fan fiction, and there are no wrong answers. You can say whatever you want. I've seen the craziest stuff. There are people who believe that JFK is wearing a Donald Trump suit, and that he's been JFK this whole time, which makes Trump like 110, means that he conceived Bannon when he was like 80 or 90. I mean, it's a remarkable story if you can believe it, and they have answers for everything, like med beds, age reversal. Good evening, Tim says, MC Dirty Work, thanks for joining. Buzzing Fret says, is Vincent Fuchsia a time traveler? I think Vincent Fuchsia might be John Denver. He looks like an appropriately aged John Denver, and he picked up a lot of groupies. See, JFK Jr. had groupies, apparently. I didn't know this, but I should have assumed it. And they're still alive. And they flocked to -48, they flocked to 107, they flocked to Vincent Fuchsia, and now there's Edward X, who's getting some of that. Like, if you can pull off this JFK Jr. in disguise thing, there are like just women waiting for you. Peter W. says, 10/28/1886 Statue of Liberty dedicated by U.S. President Grover Cleveland. Celebrated by first confetti ticker tape parade in New York City. Well, there's been some Mountain Dew predictive programming suggesting the Statue of Liberty is going to get it. Even at the Paris Olympics, Statue of Liberty broke in the Planet of the Apes imagery. We have Liberty Chill, where she's no longer wearing the crown. And where are we at on Statue of Liberty? Who is it exactly? Some people say it's Lucifer, which kind of makes sense. It's copper, and Lucifer is associated with Venus, and Venus is associated with copper. And if you look at the imagery, it's probably Lucifer, I would say. Kevin says, let's get that Jason painting order. Oh, yes, absolutely. Great art, by the way. A good render. I'll go ahead and paint that. If anybody's interested, I still have a few more slots open at the Ko-Fi shop. Just go over to Ko-Fi and click shop. I'm selling private commissions. The only stipulation here is I'm only painting AI generated art. It can be Bing. It can be, I prefer maybe, well, Dolly is what I meant, but it could be Mid-Journey. But anything AI, because it tends to get me better results than just whatever I think of. The compositions are always just superb. So lately I've been getting a lot of orders for cyborg penguins, but I will paint anything including horror movie characters. Algae Rhythm says the white hats are in control. You know who wears white hats? 33 Degree Masons. Kevin Mooring says Baron is Princess Diana's son. They're so obsessed with celebrities and royalty, the Q movement, And they believe that Bannon is Princess Diana's son, which means that Donald Trump cheated, I guess. I don't know how it all works. And Diana was with JFK Jr., so that might have created a rift between Donald and JFK Jr. And JFK Jr. had been having some intimate relations with Ghislaine Maxwell, which also seems like a conflict of interests. Jungle Jim says they also believe a relative of Trump's acquired Nikola Tesla's personal notebooks and the secrets of cold fusion will save the world. Yeah, I think they also believe that Trump is related to Julian Assange and that they're all the bloodline of Lincoln, who's really Jesus. They've got some wild, crazy out there beliefs, the Q movement, because there's no guardrails. There's no rules. Anything goes in the Q-universe. Esteban says, does Tim have a P.O. box? You know, I've considered getting a P.O. box. People used to send me, and I can show you some examples here. I'll show you what people would send me when I had a P.O. box. I have a ton of these. So when we do gather, if we ever need to fix something, we can just march down the street with our big blue wrenches. Fix the world stage. Messianic Charlatan says, what world stage character did Death Faker Corey Haim become? There is a great band called Haim right now. That'd be my first guess. Maybe he's their manager. Good call. He's probably not really dead. And makes me wonder, like Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman is an enigma. I don't know what's is that MK Ultra run amok? Like he is living in the burbs. Like he's still that character. But he goes on tour. He plays some music, and you know people kind of rip on him and stuff. But I guess he's creative. His choreography is interesting. Some watch it because they think it's cringe. But I don't know. I mean, entertainment, cringe-ertainment, it's all kind of the same these days. Esteban says, it just occurred to me the wrench represents fixing. It represents the deconstruction of the mass media deceptions, the architecture of mass deception. So it's really about fixing, yes, but it requires a bit of deconstructing first. And the wrench is also a symbol of the moderator, the blue wrench. And we started this channel at a time when if you talked about anything close to flat earth or conspiracy, you would be flooded with trolls. And I had no choice but to give everyone a wrench just so we could have conversations. So there was this correlation between the number of wrenches and the productivity of our chats. And when we had 400 wrench-carrying members in the chat, it was all mods. The trolls would just disappear. They would vaporize on site. And if some non-troll got whacked, I would say email me at infiniteplainsociety@gmail.com and I will remove you from the dungeon where all the sex bots are, and I will give you a wrench, and then you're unbannable. And as a system of vetting chat members, it was unparalleled. And that has kind of been modeled by YouTube with their membership structure now. But I would say that we kind of pioneered that. Could Corey be scripted to act as he does, asks Andrea on board. That's what I mean. There's something inorganic about it, in my opinion. He is an actor. And now this is a key component to this fictional universe concept and this entrainment of our minds by merging and synchronizing the entertainment and the news. A huge component here are the celebrities who bridge the gap between real and fake. That's why the first person that you know that caught the COVID was an actor. That's why they use these actors to bridge the gap between real and fake. So when we saw Robert De Niro going into full TDS outside the Trump trial, I knew this is not just a TDS far leftist going nuts. No, this is an actor in a role. Robert De Niro was playing a role outside the courthouse. It was scripted. And the evidence for this, well, all the predictive programming connected to the upcoming head wound that was implied by his presence there. Reverse History says, great calls, Estevan and Kevin. The first time I saw the Batman football destruction scene, I thought of the Steelers. Yeah, there's quite a lot there we could unpack. But the recent Joker connections are the most fascinating to me. I mean, the Riddler, the Joker, Thomas Crooks being associated with the Riddler. Both the physical appearance of him, singing Ave Maria, that's pretty big. Joker 2 coming out as the second shooter comes out, Ryan Routh, who's very Joker-esque, both in his looks, his laughing in court, and his hair, which was blue and yellow, which makes Joker green. Kevin Mooring says, the first Vax is William Shakespeare. Yeah, and like William Shakespeare, he had a sister named Margaret, and he was from Warwickshire. Like, that's telling you right there, the world's a stage. And that's the tagline of Joker 2. And Joker 2, I wouldn't describe it as a musical, but it had elements of a musical, and there was a lot of singing. But the purpose, I think, was to break the fourth wall, which without directly addressing the audience, but practically. And that's kind of the clue here. Like when you see these celebrities on the news, or in any of these dramas that we see, even with Diddy, for example, we're seeing the deliberate bridging between the real and fake. They're crisis actors. Messianic Charlatan says, it's been said that Corey Feldman is Charlie Sheen in a mask. There's no movies with Charlie Sheen as a child. Why not? Perhaps Charlie Sheen, child in movies, is Feldman. So does Charlie Sheen not exist? That would be the conspiracy here. Charlie Sheen doesn't exist. That he's always been a role played by Corey Feldman. It's not outside the scope of an actor like Feldman to play two roles and merge the real and fake in such a way where he's playing somebody and getting additional roles. It's like double layers of fakery. That could be done. Sort of like the theory that Benicio del Toro doesn't exist, but it's actually just Brad Pitt wearing a hyper-realistic mask. So another example where maybe this other actor doesn't exist independently. Now, you can't just go off of a resemblance. You have to check the timelines, and there's some due diligence there. But I'm interested in finding out, does Charlie Sheen actually exist, or is he just Corey Feldman? Which makes Corey Feldman's claims all the more bizarre and twisted. Infinite Plane Radio.
Oh, well, hey, Tim. This is great. I'm glad I got through.
P. Trippa.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for calling. I saw that you were looking forward to calling today.
Yeah. Hey, I don't call that regularly, and I just wanted to say, Tim, and everything you do this year has been top notch. I wanted to say just like a handful of things today. A little bit of praise. I have a couple like real, P. Trippa questions. And then I want to like to present like some ideas that I have popping in my head about the future. So just looking back, like June, the Trump assassination, or excuse me, the attempt assassination, all the things we were talking about, the ISS, in the sky, like, oh man, the Discord conversation has been top notch. And I'm a fly on the wall. I haven't had that much time to just like chime in on the audio chats and like really write, and analyze things as I really was like, in the past few years. But it's just been fantastic. I just wanted to say like what you've done and what other people have contributed to has really made like a really just exciting and rich and thought-provoking, thing for me personally, but I hope for others too. I think not enough people talk about that, and just as almost like a small promotion. Like if you guys listening aren't on the Discord, and you want to contribute, you know, you're really good at researching, you might be able to throw a few words out there, do it, you know, like just check it out, see what it's all about. Tim, I didn't even ask you if I could do this, but I'm just saying, like, it's just, you know, it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's like being that, you know, listener, you know, because I'm still learning, right? And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but like, well, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you, you know?
Yeah, and I will say thanks also for everyone's participation, because this think tank is unique. It's very productive. It is educational, and it's super interesting. It's conspiratating, and I think we've been getting better at it, and it makes it all the more intriguing. So now that we have this new thing, the IPS Deep Think Tank, it's a voice chat where we open it up for as many people, and the results have been great. And we're recording number 4 tonight, because we're hearing some of the most informed people about the misinformation, trying to arrive at the best explanations for what we're seeing. And so it's a very open-minded forum, but very focused. And I think that we're proceeding, you know, carefully and honestly in this whole thing. And it's been intriguing. So even as a fly on the wall, even when I'm just listening away from keyboard, it's always fun, always interesting. So appreciate your feedback on that. And that's just the beginning of doing what this think tank can do. And I'm glad that we're back into that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I have some questions I've been warming up to for the last few months, and I'm pretty sure you could knock them out of the park. I just, you know, sometimes I'm a little confused still, you know, to this day. You know, I understand like where we are in the realm or wherever we are. It's tough to judge between who believes what and what you believe versus what I believe and all that stuff. So let's just start with like what you normally analyze, which is the media and how it relates to pretty much everything else. I want to just simplify it for me and maybe for others. Like, you know, you were just talking about a lot of things like how, you know, well, you know what, I'll just say what I'm going to say. You know, the Atlantic article or the Atlantic cover that you commonly, you know, call out as being some sort of predictive programming, right? So the key, you know, question will be surrounding predictive programming. What, you know, with like the Trump ear kind of cover.
Yes, I have that on the screen, you know, here.
Kind of calling out the stuff.
Yes.
What? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I don't want to take your.
No, I put it on the screen. This is the Atlantic that came out before Trump was shot, and we already noted this thing. We were talking about it. It was floating around our server. We're like, look, it has the Supreme Court justices in silhouette against a red curtain, given the appearance of blood dripping down Trump's face. So here we have something very overt. And then the top of the ear, specifically his lobe, as he calls it, that's the part that is clipped here. And that's where he got shot later. So this is just one of many examples. Yes.
Yeah. So I've called in the past about the utility of this and what, like, really asking the why, you know, part of it. And maybe I still don't understand it. So maybe this is a simplified version of that. If this cover was, you know, predictive programming, right? So let's say, all right, cool, it's predictive. That means, you know, whatever it's calling out to the future, but then also programming, which is, you know, kind of telling us something, you know, it's kind of giving us something. What is the utility of this? What is the use? What is the reason? Why is it useful, let's say, to them?
Okay, good question.
You know,
basic question.
What is it useful to them? Why is it useful to them to do something like that so that it's a soft blow? I think you brought it up in one of your things a few nights ago in either the Deep Think Tank one or whatever, because I do listen, but, you know, I guess I still don't understand it. Why?
Sure.
Go ahead.
The best why for this. Okay, so why? Why are they foreshadowing? One, it's because it's the literary technique of foreshadowing, which is to hint at what's to come. It's a technique of keeping you in the story. But the reason they do this, I believe, it's mostly a form of advertising, where they know that for you to accept an idea or maybe a product, you have to see it a certain number of times. there's a post-hypnotic suggestion element. It's getting the imagery into your mind so that when they do it for real, your associations are built in. Just like when this happened, a lot of people went right over to Breaking Bad, an episode from 2008 where a character got his ear shot. A lot of people had associations for the same thing with characters that reflect Trump. For example, the first season, episode 12 of The Sopranos, Tony Soprano gets his ear shot and he's a mob boss. And there are other connections to that particular event. So it's a matter of getting us to pre-accept something in advance, put things into the realm of possibility that aren't really there, so that when it happens, nobody questions the fundamental reality of it. It's been normalized. And so this thing with Trump, the headshot of Trump has been normalized through this saturation process that we refer to as predictive programming. I mean, isn't propaganda primarily a matter of repetition? That's one of the primary things about marketing and propaganda. It's about repetition. And so you saw this bad Trump character throughout your life before he even emerged on the world stage in his present form. So we've already been sold the story in advance. And I think it's sort of like how retroactive interference works in interrogations, where they can influence your perceptions by merging. In other words, by getting you to, I guess, associate what they're presenting to you with things that you've already been told. Like they're kind of planting seeds, you could say.
Right. So like things like 9/11, like we, all the movies leading up to, 2000, whatever, 9/11 and all, like whatever happened, like there was like movies and, terrorist kind of stuff. Like I kind of get, I kind of understand that, it's making it so it's more believable. And I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Independence Day. Independence Day. You recall that movie with Roland Emmerich? Okay. What was the main theme? Aliens blowing up buildings. But what did it do? It filled your head with images of iconic buildings falling. You have never experienced that before. You have no images of your mind, in your imagination, of iconic buildings falling because of aliens. Well, now you have it fresh in your mind. Then you see it on TV, and you've already pre-experienced this. And I don't think the subconscious is making a distinction between what you see in the movie theater and what you see on the nightly news.
Wow.
And that's how it merges the two.
Yeah. No, and that movie came out in 1996, so that's wild that it's that far in advance. And, well, I know you've obviously, informed us of other things that are, 33 years in advance, of something else happening, So, but no, this is good. This is good. This is good for me.
Yeah, one more point too.
I hope it's good for others too.
Because yes, you might find something 33 years in advance, but there are things that happen that day that tell you that no, this is intentionally aligned. So, for example, the lone nut shooter, that episode, that TV show, an X-Files spinoff that aired right before 9/11. That had 9/11 inside job narrative and the plane going towards the towers. And they said 110 souls saved. I mean, it was like 100% predictive programming, but the timing of it is highly suggestive of it being not a coincidence, but advertising, preparing us, rehearsal, a drill. So I think, again, it's just a matter of propaganda through repetition.
Yeah, no, and it does, in fact, like kind of help, for us, from our perspective. Actually, I'll kind of go back to like the Trump assassination attempt the first time, part one. It helps us in the sense of keeping a clear mind when we're analyzing a story unfold in real time, instead of, let's say, freaking out. Because not that we would, but I'm just saying, like, not causing any alarm, like, in ourselves. For instance, like I noticed, I don't know if you even this year, I feel like it's a lot of significant events. Like the shipping container in Maryland that crashed into, the bridge. I noticed, just like in Trump's first attempt at the assassination, I noticed a lot of people kind of saying, "Oh, this is like kind of fake," the Dalai Lama painting kind of is like this, and it's like a bridge and all this stuff, and it's broken. And it was so much kind of like truther stuff that was almost like, we've talked about this too, like tippy-toeing into an infinite plane society kind of perspective, but there's that guardrail that's like keeping people inside. And I for whatever reason this year, I noticed that the news is turning up the guardrailing so much. So no, I disagree with you on, well, excuse me, I'll say I have different opinions and beliefs with regards to like the climate stuff. So I noticed the bridge story from First Assassination, like literally people close to me saying, like, can you believe this happened? Oh my God, whatever. And I'm just like, it doesn't even faze me. And then the last thing was really like the last few storms, Tim, the St. Helene or whatever, Hurricane Helene or whatever, that first big one about a month ago, and people started telling it, people, whatever's going on, there's so much truther / IPS kind of perspective peeking into the MSM. I would say that just the regular MSM, mainstream media, that like to the point like where the president or Biden had to say, no, we're not doing any fake news, fake weather, manipulation or something like that. And I'm like, it's like they're doing some crowd control for like the bridge, Trump's first assassination or attempt, and then this weather stuff. And I'm just like, is there something, is something breaking the veil? Like, is the curtain, for, like being pulled a little bit, like where you could kind of peek behind, like, I don't know, like everyone can see all this stuff a little bit clearer. I don't know, Tim.
I'll let to that one.
I don't know if you have your opinions on that.
I have noticed like this. That? And what I notice here, though, is that the mainstream does promote the MSM plus, but they promote it and say it's wrong. And so I make a distinction between acknowledged and unacknowledged. So the mainstream media acknowledges MTG saying weather weapons. They acknowledge Alex Jones saying it's chemtrails cause the hurricanes. They acknowledge that. So that's not an indication of the veil breaking. It's an indication of this purposeful dichotomy they create, where we say this is natural, enhanced by man and CO2. They say it's secret government projects. These are two acknowledged perspectives. But there's a third one that's not acknowledged. The one that says it's just natural weather, man has not influenced it at all, but it's exaggerated by the media. So the hoaxed, psyop, augmented perspective isn't really acknowledged, but rather the alternative to the mainstream is acknowledged. And they're using that to create this perception that alt media is dangerous. Because now you have these stories of conspiracy theorists threatening weathermen, threatening FEMA. So to me, it looks like they acknowledged it so they could attack the opposite side. So I always pay attention to what are they acknowledging, and then, of course, what are they not acknowledging? And they're not acknowledging the skeptical view.
Right.
But I do think they are doing damage control. I do think that real auto-hoaxing is it's a sleeping giant, if you ask me. But people need to connect certain dots first. And that is a possibility, in my opinion.
Yeah. One of the things you brought up in the deep think tank conversations, I think it was that there, was that there may never be like a mass, let's say, awakening or realization of what this realm really is, or whatever, whatever it could be, and how we're being manipulated, and so on and so forth, and further, how to change that, or how to change our perspective, and how to improve our lives given that knowledge. It's almost, it seems a little like futile sometimes, but I think it's working. I know I'm rambling, but I think
you're not rambling at all.
A lot for me.
Like,
but yeah.
I would say it's daunting because what we're looking at is so vast, and they have a control, like a guardrail in place. So all the free thinkers, the ones who are naturally skeptical, they get drawn in deeper. So it's a very, very clever thing. But you can't have a mass awakening with people who are in the MSM or MSM plus
Oh my
boxes.
gosh.
Because that would be like waking up, or rather organizing the residents within a mental asylum and then trying to overthrow the orderlies and take
Yep.
over. It's like, well, no, they don't have
Yeah.
the right perspective. It can't work.
I do have other thoughts. I just want to insert one small thing that you brought up to me, and I think it is important for us. To me, I just want to just, shout it from the rooftops what I think is going on here. But of course, we will be. Now I'm leaning in a little bit. We would be considered a little crazy by many people. But one by one, it can't hurt to just insert a little funny or fun question here and there to your closest friends, neighbors, family members. I think the other night we had a full moon, and what you just said reminded me of how every now and then I just have fun with the reality, with the matrix. My girlfriend just was peeking out the window to the full moon, just marveling at how pretty it was, beautiful, whatever. And I said, of course, for me, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what things are. I don't know what the planets are. I don't know why the sky is blue. I don't know why the water is blue or turquoise or green or whatever. But I did ask her. I said, isn't it weird how we always see like the same face of the moon? Isn't that weird to you? Isn't that unusual? I said, it's just because of the way we, she couldn't explain it. She's like, yeah, it's just the way, the Earth spins and all this stuff. And I had to think about it for a minute. I'm like, oh man, no one knows. No one could even rationally explain. Like, I could probably go down the street to someone working at the most intelligent place and ask them the same thing. And the moon is tidally locked, whatever it's called. I forget the word. I used to teach physics in high school. And like, that's the textbook meaning of what it does, or, what is happening. But no one's ever really stopped and thought how that actually works. And that's what really bothers me.
It bothers me. It does.
And sorry, I'll ramble. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's like it's tidally locked, which means that its face is
Tidally
always
locked,
faces
yeah.
us, but then they also say that it's rotating, that it completes a rotation every 27 days. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's tidally locked, so its face is always toward us.
Yeah.
Yet it rotates every 27 days. And they say it's because we have a synchronous orbit. And it sounds like a contradiction to me. Like if you were looking at your phone like a selfie, and you spun in a circle, there's no way you could rotate your phone while spinning and never see the back of it. So it is kind of weird to me. It doesn't make sense. It's kind of counterintuitive. So the moon kind of makes me, it perplexes me in that sense. I've modeled it out. I think about it, but it's like, choose one: synchronous orbit or tidally locked. You can't have them both.
Yes, and you're right. And just picking apart one person at a time, just saying, hey, you ever notice that, like, we never really know where the dinosaur bones come from or something? Just have fun with the questions like that you ask and see what happens. And I know to some I might seem kind of, it's been a while since I've talked to you, Tim, so I'm always excited to kind of just let it all. This is like my therapy too. Not many people I know, are as rational as you are, Mr. IPS.
I appreciate that. And yeah, this is my therapy as well. This is it's always constructive, and it makes sense out of things. And there is therapeutic value to skepticism. It means that you're not triggered because you're not believing everything. You're not falling for narratives designed like rage bait. Rage bait is huge these days. Engagement bait, rage bait, doom scrolling. People doom scroll themselves into some very dark places. And I feel like we've been immunized against a lot of that negativity.
Very true. Very true. I can't thank you enough, Tim. I'm going to end with this. I don't call that often, so I'm appreciate all the time you're giving me and stuff like that. A couple weeks back, there was a person in the Discord who was kind of calling a lot of us out on not supporting you as much, and I really took that to heart. I just said, this is like my therapy, and I've met a lot of good people here from around the world. No one's around Boston. I mean, hey, if there's anyone from Boston, come, just message me. But I mean, it's you're I'm connecting with people, and I do what I can, for you, Tim. But with that, some of those guys or people were saying, I took it to heart, and I really do want to give. I've worked on being a receiver, and stuff like that, but I really do want to give, money when I can, and that, and support your artwork and all that stuff. My point is, I want to give something to everyone, and it's my time. In the last 4 years, I've invested in real estate, and I feel like I've become, somewhat successful, but I'm still working on it, obviously. And I want to chat with people, like I want to be able to connect with people more in the Discord, and maybe either privately or start a new thread where it's growing income, growing wealth, for you and your family, with the mindset, with the backdrop of, we understand, IPS and all that stuff. I know that's pretty vague, but once you guys call me up, I'll tell you everything about me and stuff like that. But Tim, this is like,
Okay, I got it.
I can't give much more. I can't give much more than I can to you, than I already do. But what I can do is give my time for free to others, and like kind of guide them to be more wealthy. So it's coming from the heart, bro. And I really do wish I could do more, but I'm actually talking to everyone who's listening right now, and I'm saying, hey, look, if you're struggling, you want to learn how you can learn some new skills. Maybe it's real estate, but I've failed in other places too. Maybe learn from my mistakes. Look me up in the Discord and reach out to me. Let's start a group. Maybe you are also good at making money, and I think, Tim, what I believe is, if we can work together, we all start, chatting. We have this backdrop of IPS and stuff like that. We start creating more wealth. It's going to come right back to you, Tim. So that's what I'm throwing out there as like a, just an opportunity, and I'm going to leave that open for here to time immemorial. So, anyways. I'll stop right there.
That sounds.
I
Look,
really appreciate it.
That sounds great. If it sounds fantastic, we have a Discord server that kind of fell out of use, but we're bringing it back. And when we're not recording these podcasts, when we're just hanging out, we talk about a lot of things. And just being associated with the Discord server and that community, I know we taught ourselves between our group a lot of meme tech. We went from crop and drop to highly refined to now we're doing AI. And
yeah,
we did an animated series, the South Pole, and that was just a product of a lot of people contributing. Some people getting into voice, voiceover, narration, animation. So we do happen to get a lot of creative people together, and people tend to teach each other things. And I think that would be a great addition. And I do have the objective here of getting into the meatverse, breaking out of the metaverse. And the idea of the IPR Press Club is that we begin interacting in the real world and bringing this thing to the surface. And what you're talking about sounds like it's right in line with that, because this is a really unique and dynamic, interesting group of individuals, and I certainly think we can learn a lot from each other.
All right, man.
So thank you for that.
I appreciate it, and I'll close with that. And have a great rest of your night, and thank you all for being patient with me. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pete Trippa. Have a great evening.
You too.
And when it comes to supporting the channel, every person commenting, everybody's research, it's all part of what builds the value here and what makes the think tank what it is, because there's so many of us looking at the same thing from the right perspective. So it's not about agreeing upon a set number of events that we all say were faked, but rather our unifying characteristic between all of us isn't what we believe, but rather it's our position, it's our vantage point, which is psy-war aware. If you're not aware of the psychological war, maybe you're just aware of psyops, because truthers are aware of psyops, but they don't put them in the bigger context. If you're not including psychological operations, perception management, and hoaxes in your assessment of the media you consume, you have been deceived. You are deceiving yourself. Stop it. All right, let's get back onto my Twitter feed. Breaking. Steve Bannon. I think they're still holding him. The Biden-Harris. This is from Maureen Bannon. Administration are illegally holding my dad past his release date. Does anybody care that Steve Bannon got arrested? I think they should have put him in forced labor, making bricks to build the wall he didn't build that he collected millions of dollars for. But Steve Bannon, Breitbart, right-wing agitator, major league QAnoner, he prayed during the eclipse. He prayed. He led a prayer so that the demonic spirits wouldn't come through. So if you don't know who Steve Bannon is, he's kind of like Jack Posebek's daddy. He's just an older, he's a kind of a mainstay of conservatism, but he's always been a kind of a provocateur. Was he there at J6? I don't think so, but he was intimately involved in it. But let me go ahead and bring up his eclipse thing. You know, he and Roger Stone, for example. Roger Stone, too, did the same thing. They prayed about the portal over the White House. Steve Bannon to host eclipse prayer service to stop satanic forces that come through. Yes, this is Steve Bannon. Now, before he got arrested, he was getting swatted for attention, like MTG, like Tim Pool. You know, Tim Pool's been swatted 13 times, so he says, zero evidence. But getting swatted doesn't get you attention anymore, so now they get arrested. And this is just, like, when Trump got arrested, he did too. And I was like, this is not a coincidence. He's just trying to jump on top of it. Conservative podcaster Steve Bannon said he would host a prayer service to stop satanic forces during the eclipse. Well, no satanic forces came through that I noticed, so I guess it worked. I guess we should thank him. But I see him marching down the hallway saying, my fight has just begun. The deep state hasn't stopped me. I mean, it's just, to me, this is a PR stunt. I don't think Steve Bannon really got arrested or really went to jail. And all he did is he refused a court summons or a subpoena. He could have just went in and pled the fifth, but he didn't. Why? Because he wanted the clicks. He wanted to go to jail. He wanted to be like Trump. He's trying to make himself into a martyr. He's too smart to have fallen for something like that. So Steve Bannon, it's either entirely fake, like his swattings, or it's entirely orchestrated for political gain. But unfortunately, nobody cares. I mentioned Jack Posebek. Jack Pizzagate. He started Pizzagate and Comet Pizza. He's back to pushing QAnon. He said, nothing can stop what is coming. And that is from Q drop number 4950. You know, there are more Q drops than Bible verses. It's not going to go away. Dwayne Obith says, the Gilded server is more active than Discord. Yeah, we've emphasized Gilded because Discord is full of FBI informants. It's full of agitators and contractors who are there to get you shut down. And we had to flush out a lot of people. Our Discord server with years of memes, years of content was deleted because of one anti-vax neo-Nazi from Canada. Nothing against Canada. However, I have noticed that there are a lot of agents who have the same talking points that all come from Canada. And again, a lot of them aren't here anymore, but they seem to have come from the same Telegram server, and their job was infiltrate the server and spam it with vax stuff and then get them flagged. So we no longer find Discord that reliable, but we do use it for the voice chat. However, Gilded is just like Discord. And I noticed Gilded doesn't have any agents. It's weird. The people who spam Discord do not go to Gilded. So it's like they're contracted. Linda Curtis says, Steve Bannon sounds like a Batman character. Yeah, I find it to be unbelievable. Sometimes I think he could be Andrew Breitbart in a fat suit. Nicotrama says, P. Trippa, I always thought the IPS think tank could put their collective brain power together and figure out investments based on the world stage. Yeah, if we could have placed bets. I mean, we could. We could, actually. Like Biff Tannen. You know the future. You should be able to do something with it. We did say World War III starts on Wednesday. We said that on Sunday. And this was the Sunday prior to 3/11/2020. My Third Eye says John Wayne Gacy was executed the same day Dahmer was baptized. Now, didn't John Wayne Gacy have 33 bodies in his basement? He's one of these killer clowns. Yep, here we go. John Wayne Gacy, American serial killer, murdered at least 33 young men. I don't know Dahmer's body count, but I tend to think a lot of these things are likely exaggerated or fake. I don't know. I was really into true crime growing up, and I looked at a lot of pictures, and I didn't see a lot of reason to doubt some of these, although it could be sensationalized. Like the Ed Gein story, for example, the basis for Psycho. Like, that was pretty real, I think. All right, phones are still open, 505-510-4226. So earlier, Messianic Charlatan suggested that Corey Haim is still alive, and he found there's a band called Haim, and he suspected that Corey Haim is probably in that band. Well, the drummer, Dash Hutton, looks like an appropriately aged Corey Haim. So did we just find Corey Haim? And if this is true, if this drummer, Dash Hatton, is Corey Haim, then Charlie Sheen doesn't exist. By that logic. Because Charlie Sheen would therefore have been proven to be Corey Feldman in a mask. LG Rhythms, the best way to contact me, one of the best ways, and I made this the go-to, is go to insider.online, and if you scroll down, there's a contact form. It says breaking news, tips, want to submit an article for publication in the next issue, contact us here. So I am planning on ordering the IPS Insider for the September issue. It's late, but at this point, we're kind of running uphill. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but to me, getting it out there is important. And it's going to be a little expanded from what I initially had ready to publish because I've had more time. But the IPS Insider is going to be on order on my next payday, which is tomorrow. But if you scroll down, this is where I have breaking news tips you can submit, and then you can get in contact with me there, and I will be getting that directly to my inbox. Right below that, we have the IPS Insider Reporter Fund. So if you want to fund any reportage, if you want to send someone down to Antarctica, there is a Give, Send, Go set up for it in advance. And as this builds up, I think it'll become increasingly productive because we'll be financing reportage. Like Esteban called, he had some interesting ideas. Yeah, we can finance these things, and we've done it before. This channel has a great deal of experience with financing things that get attention globally. You have to remember, we did the Research Flat Earth Billboard, attention national, worldwide. We financed Mad Mike Hughes after that. He was the top trending story for 3 days on Facebook. He had 17 national headlines that day, multiple documentaries. I mean, we do create these media events, should we choose to. And we're preparing to go back into that. And we always crowdfund it from within. And it was back when we had around 400 listeners that it seemed like we could just manifest anything. The next thing might be to do an art event. I'm thinking there might be something to it. We'll talk about that later, probably in our think tank later, the deep think tank. But I have some concepts. Because art is one of these things that isn't as easily censorable, or it's in poor taste to burn art. But they can burn your memes all day. Well, what happens when we get some of these memes put out onto canvases? I think it's kind of an interesting point here to get into this area where some of the ideas they don't want you to contemplate, the unacknowledged, not the controlled opposition like weather weapons, but the fact that they fake or they exaggerate literally everything. You know, before you start thinking about weather weapons and geoengineering, ask yourself, why do these reporters lean into fake wind when they're trying to exaggerate the weather? It's because the media primarily exaggerates. That's all they do. They lie. They fabricate. Like a false flag isn't real, but somebody else did it. It's fake, and they're giving you alternative explanations so you don't talk about the fakery. So we're seeing kind of like these weather false flags. Esteban says Dash Hutton was 2012-2017 as their drummer. Could be him. James M. says Donald Trump is at the Steelers game tonight. Michael Keaton, Mr. Batman himself, started the game's broadcast with the opening monologue. That's a good connection there. So here's the connection. Michael Keaton was Batman 1. Michael Keaton is in Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice 2 comes out with Joker 2. Beetlejuice has green hair. He's a Joker-esque character. So Beetlejuice 2, Joker 2, and then you have the second shooter, Ryan Routh. So we had this theme going on here that has already connected Michael Keaton to the bigger narrative, specifically to the second shooter. So the fact that Michael Keaton, aka Beetlejuice, is there at the Steelers game with Trump is very portentous and definitely connected. LG Rhythm says, Tim, how did you get over 16,000 followers on Twitter? That used to be Art Bell's account. When I was a program manager for Dark Matter, I took that account. And so there's a lot of just mostly paranormal type. I try to unfollow a lot of the people they were following. And then I use that account primarily because it's got the premium features, and it's the one that has all our video archives. Michael Keaton hosted SNL. Okay, this is really good. So the Michael Keaton Joker Batman connections are there. And then, okay, one more point here. In Beetlejuice, Donald Trump is in Hell's waiting room. You know, Donald Trump is there in the netherworld awaiting his final disposition. So here he is. Beetlejuice has a scene in the afterlife where a Trump-like ghoul in a gold suit, and seemingly looks to me like, it looks head woundy to me. It looks bloody right there. But there are other pictures of it that I've shown you where he even has an American flag lapel pin. That is Trump. So Donald Trump, Beetlejuice correlates to Joker, connects to the Batman story, and has a dead Trump in it. And then Michael Keaton is there at the event. Second shooter has same initials as Reagan, says Michelle Kastner. Yeah, and I also thought that Ryan could easily be an anagram, for Iran. Mango says, Dark Matter is always playing you, Tim. Yeah, Dark Matter went out of business. But it could resurrect, who knows. I happen to think that paranormal is interesting, and there are a lot of very bright people in it. But I can't devote my time to talking about, or rather focusing on the supernatural, the non-objective. We're really maintaining objectivity here. AngstG says, Robert Malone gave a speech a couple months ago, and other than being an anti-vax, I would swear he was an IPS listener. He even spoke about the need for a parallel media. Yeah, I do see that we do set trends here. We coined the term face diaper and COVID 1984. That came from us. We are trendsetters. Even, people use a lot of our lexicon. That's why we're doing Auto Hoax Con. That's the whole purpose here, is that we are having to get ahead of all these people who are controlled opposition. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, you're controlled opposition. And you may not like that, but, the facts don't care about your feelings. And if you're an anti-vaxxer, you have to either get over it, figure it out, or become a non-vaxxer and just get out of that particular info war. Because if you're aligned with that, you're aligned with a lot of bad actors. You're aligned with the fictional universes. But I also bought the domain parallelmedia.org, which leads to insider.online. And the whole purpose here is that we are starting the parallel media. And what that means is that we are setting ourselves apart from the general consensus of conspiracy theorists, what we call Trutherville. And we're separating by deliberately not carrying any kind of water for the controlled opposition. We're not propaganda mules. And the explanation for what the parallel media is posted at my IPS Insider Twitter account. It's the bookmarked tweet. So if you haven't read this, we have this group called Parallel Media. It's a community. What is the parallel media? And I'll post a link to this here if you haven't read it. It's kind of a manifesto. But fake and this is the manifesto here, just the intro here. Fake mainstream and fake alternative media constitute the world stage fictional universe. There is no platform for media skeptics outside the networks of individuals and disparate communities already doing so. We call this growing body of non-MSM and non-MSM plus conditioned minds the parallel media. So the people who see the need for this are going to eventually come over here. But as we move on, they're going to have to recognize that what skepticism requires of you is that you reject a lot of what I call truther orthodoxies. It's a new operating system. We're talking about a break from the global paradigm rooted in massifying minds with media as the new religion, which is the case. I look at mass media at large as having supplanted religion itself. And trutherism is the default anti-MSM position. It's the default position. It's not a thinking position. It's actually passive. And what we're doing here is we're engaging in a more active analysis of media. We figured out how it works. We've determined what predictive programming is. And the reason I said, and I went with parallel, because originally I had this idea for anti-media. But we're not trying to oppose the mainstream media. When you say media, people think mainstream. They don't look at Alex Jones and say he's the media. He is. You cannot separate mainstream from alt. They're part of the same fictional universe. So we have to be outside of that. The anti is controlled. That's why I also maintain the position of anti-anti, anti-pro. It's not enough to be anti-pro. That's reflex. If you're on the anti side, you're just as controlled as the pro side. There is no distinction between the pro-vax and the anti-vax from this perspective. There isn't. There's no distinction between climate change hustlers and chemtrail hustlers. They're the same animal. Cutting fringe, says Jacob Menden. Exactly. A Newful says, well, anti-vax for myself, I guess. Yeah, look, that's your position, that's your belief. But the position I would say take the non. Just don't even have an opinion on it. Because that opinion is drowned in agendas that have nothing to do with that opinion and align you with a host of other agendas and position you within the box. It's not a skeptical position. You could also call it a paranoia at this point. I would be on your side if any of the doomsday prophecies from Trutherville came true in the last 4 years, but none of them have. Dwayne Obith says IPS is analogous to outsider art. Yeah, this is outsider media. If you want to look at that from that perspective, I say we are very ivory tower, conscientious objectors to the Psy-War, and we're not letting anybody bring their war with them. If you're triggered, if you're triggerable, if you've taken the bait, you wouldn't even make it to the raft, to be quite honest. There's a lot of people who are still mad at me about chemtrails for no reason at this point. It's like, look, at this point, the burden of proof has been shifted. Bill Gates-ophobia is a controlled opposition position. If you're afraid of Bill Gates, I can already tell you some things about yourself. If you think Bill Gates is the devil, you think Elon Musk is likely a savior. This is just within Trutherville. If you think that Elon Musk is the devil, then you think Bill Gates is the savior. Why is that? And Bill Gates and Elon Musk are both billionaires. So each side has their billionaire saviors that the other side considers to be destroyers, like the end of civilization. Bill Gates is going to depopulate the world. That's what the right-wing Alex Jones type think. But the left thinks Bill Gates just saved the world. So which is it? Can you be a savior and a destroyer at the same time? And you might not think of Elon Musk as your savior, but if something happens here on Earth, he's selling the tickets to the Plan B. And Musk is saving free speech. A lot of people think that he saved free speech, which is ridiculous because he's a top-tier mind controller as being part of the space program. And outer space has always just been a metaphor for inner space, the space between your ears, because the space program's goal, its purpose, isn't to take you to some distant paradise on some exoplanet, but it's always been controlling your world view. That's why it makes so much sense that Elon Musk would be owning this massive piece of social media infrastructure, because that's where they control your world view. And they're using him on the right side to bring in right fringe views onto the world stage. Disease X. I don't even have an opinion on the pokey. Like, I don't believe they're going to grab guns. They're not going to force jab. It's also symbolic. So the toxic masculinity on the right is associated with the gun, the AR-15. Pretty easy to see that as a phallic symbol. Active principle. It shoots, it kills. The needle on the left, which is associated with feminism or toxic femininity, the needle is passive. You have to sit down, be compliant. You have to allow the government, the state, to sit you down like a good animal and then poke you. So you have active and passive. The right thinks the left wants to grab their guns. And then you have this split where the left is afraid the right's going to grab their wombs. So the gun grab, womb grab, left, right, male-female divide, these are polarities that are engineered to never be reconciled and to maintain the perpetual war which Orwell referred to. And Orwell said something about history that those who... Let me bring this quote up because this is especially relevant now since we're talking about the real purpose of fake news. Because the real purpose of... the purpose of the fake news, isn't just to win, elections. It's not to score political points. These aren't just like isolated PR stunts, but rather the fake news in the aggregate becomes history. They are making history right in front of your eyes. Those who control the present control the past. Those who control the past control the future. This is Orwell. And this is 100% true. What we're looking at, and the reason for predictive programming, and the reason why it's a contiguous line from predictive programming to fake news event to changes in society, the reason why these things are aligned is because of this. They control our time by writing our history, by controlling our perceptions of the world. So they are writing our history fake news by fake news event. And there is a lot of real news out there, sure, because they have to. Like the sky's blue, they can't lie about that. But whenever they do lie, it's reinforced. There's no internal fact checking. It's more like, at this point, it's almost like blunt force mind hacking. They just throw everything. There's not enough time in the day to go through all the fake news to debunk it. You just have to, at this point, if you want to keep your head above the sea of irrelevance, if you want to keep your head above the water, you have to learn how to categorically reject bad claims. And the masses don't have that ability because they're not engaged in critical thinking because they are passive consumers of media. And this applies to mainstream and alternative. MSM, MSM+. They're both passively consuming their preferred media. And as passive consumers, they're subject to all kinds of mind viruses. They're what I call mind AIDS patients. They have MAIDs. The only cure for MAIDs is to get on this side of the screen, to socially distance yourself from that monolith. Not to put your head through the screen and to chase second and third shooters. Lloyd says, guns have been grabbed all over the world. Trump supporters Yeah, that's a fear that's been spread for a long time, that if they take the guns, the new world order wins. And here's my point about this. Like, I don't think it matters, one, but two, the narrative has been for years that the AR-15 in the hands of the truthers is the firewall against global tyranny. That's Alex Jones's line, that 1776 is going to commence again if you try to take the guns. Waco was about the guns. The gun grab scenario has always been a sort of doomsday for the far right, that this is when it's time to fight back. And this is why they're faking the school shootings, to get the public behind grabbing guns. But my point here is, it doesn't matter if they take the guns. The guns are no defense against this, because they've already taken your minds. You have all these patients in this massive open-air asylum, and what are they going to do? They don't have a clear picture. They don't have the situational awareness to even fight their way out of this. Resistance is futile. And you can't get off the grid and go into a bunker and have your radiation kits and your guns and your Bibles and your storable food items and survive the apocalypse. Because if you're in that place, you're not off the grid. Because mentally, you're still in the mind war. You have to get off the grid mentally. I'm off the grid, and I live in a city. I am more off the grid than some truther hiding in some bunker. And why is he hiding? Obviously, it's fear. And notice how the bunker thing has always been a staple of, conspiracy theorists. Like, oh, we have a bunker, a shelter, some place to hide out. It's always been about quarantine. Even now, they say get out of the cities, quarantine from the left. Well, quarantining is the ultimate capitulation. Like, now you're a prisoner in a cell. You put yourself in a box. Exactly, Lloyd Miller. Worse than that, guns are useless unless you're well organized. And you cannot organize truthers. You cannot organize normies on anything other than big lies. It doesn't make any sense. And the idea you'd have to use violence anyway is wrong-headed. I happen to think this is a philosophical question. This is not about ideology. It's about epistemology and perception. I mean, this has the makings of a, maybe small, it might be limited to a small group, or it could metastasize. But I look at this as something of a neo-enlightenment, if you can agree that mass media has put us into a neo-dark age. And I don't think it's a stretch to say so. If you look at how the masses are manipulated en masse as a hive mind. Yeah, and they've been given a false worldview. And when I say dark age, I mean darkness as a symbol of ignorance. We are in the dark. We are hoodwinked. We all have the digital veil, the digital hoodwink. Another main problem, or one of the main, and this is when I said it's a problem of epistemology, is people use the screen as though it's a window to show them what's going on in the world. And yeah, it is something of a window, but it's more of a filter because of how curated it is, because what they're ignoring, the lies by omission. So it's not a window to inform you about the world, but it's a filter to conform you to the worldview that the worldview monopolists want you to have. There is a worldview monopoly. I don't even think it makes logical sense to talk about countries and governments and gripe about this nation or that nation, because in my view, there's only one government, and everything else is bred in circuses. Truth Hurt says psychics are frauds, all of them. I don't know if that's true, but it depends on how you define psychic. There are a lot of tricks that people can do to make it look like they're psychic, but I do think there's something to be said about intuition and I guess, sort of like non-linear or like synchronistic messaging. Things that you would consider to be merely coincidences. I sometimes think that there's some kind of interface between what I would consider to be our higher consciousness or some level of awareness that seems to be a little more informed, maybe a little outside of time and space. Like, I do think we have a soul. And I think that its signal gets attenuated by the flesh. So I don't think all psychics, like, for example, I've had precognition. I've had intuitive guidance. And these are things that consistently have happened to where I realize no one's going to believe it. No one will believe you if you tell them, I have this feeling this is happening or this might happen. No one's going to believe you because you can't provide them any information. All you have is a feeling, an intuition. But if your intuition is right and it leads you to something that you couldn't possibly have known, something outside the range of perception, if it happens once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and if it seems to also imply some kind of moral choice on your end, like some action taken on your end, like there's some intelligent guidance there, I have no way to explain it. I have no way to explain it outside of allowing for the idea that we have some kind of sentience that transcends the body. But I don't think you can call a psychic hotline and figure out what the future is. But I used to, notice this stuff. I've always had intuition, and I've been right so many times with it. And I used to talk to people about it, and people are generally not open to it. They can easily just drop it. They can easily just say no. They can just dismiss it with a hand wave. But a couple of times, the significance of what it led me to had me conclude at the end of it that I am always going to put that above what anybody of the world has to say, because this is information or guidance that is coming from a place that is not of the world. It couldn't have been derived from the senses. And I kind of got the idea too that by responding to it, I was creating a greater connection with it. And I liken it to echolocation, like a bat in the dark navigating with sound waves by sending signals out into the dark and then adjusting its position based upon what bounces back. And I feel like our consciousness extends into the future, into the yet to be manifest, and that if you're engaged with it, there's something of a cybernetic system that we're in. It's responsive to your thoughts, in my opinion. But I stopped trying to get validation because mainstream worldview says that you're just an ape with a big ego, nothing means anything, and your attempts to make meaning out of stuff is just cope because you can't face death. And I think that's laughable. But I'm not interested in trying to convince people about this because after the last few times where intuition had led me to something that I needed to see, I just learned to trust it implicitly. And I can't fully explain it, but I certainly trust it because it knows more than I do. But I don't think it's God. I don't say it's some deity. I think it's an aspect of our own sentience that is accessible. I haven't quite figured it all out. But while I was thinking about this, because this is how it works, I was thinking about this very topic, and I was watching this series about this female drug lord. I think it's called Griselda. And one of the characters is reading the book Labyrinth by Jorge Borges. And he's talking about time and breaking cycles of time. And the book Labyrinth, it's just, I picked it up. I started listening to the audiobook. And I started having these interesting kind of synchronicities that kept bringing the labyrinth to my attention. And I was trying to figure out what it meant. And at the same time, I was also seeing there's just patterns. Of course, these are meaningless coincidences according to mainstream. But I also was starting to see minotaurs. And I was just asking aloud, what the hell does minotaur, what the hell does that mean? What does a minotaur have to do with anything here? A minotaur in a labyrinth. What is this trying to tell me? And as I'm thinking about this, a truck pulls up in front of me, and the license plate says ID, just ID. And so I look that up. I'm thinking about it. So I go, what does this mean? So I look up id and minotaur, and I found a lot of information, and it kind of got me thinking that the intuition is almost like an unruly or uncontrollable, or rather something that's not in your control, but it's there. But it's, how would I describe it? Like you're trying to communicate to your subconscious, more or less. And maybe symbols are ways that you can interact with it. And I think that might be the case. If you look at how much of the predictive programming involves archetypal themes and symbols that resonate with us on a deeper level, because they're certainly communicating. The mass media psyops certainly communicate with us at multiple levels. But I think they talk to our subconscious. And I think that we can too. I think that's what you're doing when you are interacting with your intuition. But sometimes it, I haven't read like the Bible in its entirety. I read here and there, but I was just driving one day and I was thinking about the idea, as we're thinking about here, we're talking about this intuition. So I was thinking about intuition one day and I'm driving around and I see this graffiti on a post and it says, I am God. It says, I am God. And so I didn't have any sort of, I think it was, I am God. And then below it said, APD raped me. That was the graffiti. But I am God stuck to me. So I go to the next park and I'm at this park taking a walk. But as I park my vehicle, someone in front of me parks and his license plate is John 146. And I didn't know what John 146 was. But it was, again, it's all about timing and where you are at that place. So I'm thinking about I am, and I see I am on some graffiti. And then I go park behind a car and it's John 146. So I look up John 146 in the Bible and it says I am. I am the way. So it's what I'm thinking, what I see, and what happens next gives me the answer. Sort of like I'm thinking about what does the Minotaur mean, and then I see id. So that's what I mean when I say cybernetic system, that it's responsive. But responsive in a way that doesn't make sense if you accept the standard model of the universe as described, and these things couldn't possibly happen because it would imply some kind of rearrangement of reality, or, as I've come to sort of think about it, that maybe the universe doesn't exist until it's experienced, which might make a lot more sense out of synchronistic events or synchronicities that seem to lead from focused attention, one's thoughts, one's will. Because your mind's not supposed to influence events. That's magic. But what about what it does? That's crazy. They can pathologize it. They can call it apophenia. They can attach all kinds of labels to it, which I understand. I've researched them all. But when it leads you to things that seem to imply there's an intelligence behind it, then I walk away from it thinking, okay, I am definitely not fully understanding this, but I am seeing something. But it's mostly anecdotal, so I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I have so many examples that from my own perspective, I don't need to completely spend all my time trying to reverse engineer it. I just document it and pay attention to it. My Third Eye says, hijacking the subconscious is part of what the world stage is for. Agreed. Well, Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud are relatives of the Netflix CEO and co-founder. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Leo Pirate.
Oh, hey, what's up? How are you doing today?
Hey, what's up, man? Just want to give a quick biblical perspective on the view of synchronicities, because I remember you and I had actually had a brief conversation in DMs about, like, you said, like, if I'm a Christian, how does it account for synchronicities, or what does it view about it? And it's actually quite interesting. It takes, as it's described in the Word, a view where the default state is actually time and chance. That's the default state. And this is not, I'm not going to give my perspective. I'll just actually read a single verse. And I like giving context rather than just reading verses. This is from the Old Testament, and this is written by Solomon, who, according to the biblical narrative, is the wisest man who ever lived. And near the end of his life, he wrote this book of wisdom called Ecclesiastes. And I kid you not, the verse I'm going to read you is Ecclesiastes 9:11. That's the verse, okay?
Okay.
And what Solomon wrote, he's describing
the state of the entire world. And this is the King James Version. He said, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. And it's describing the, I guess, default unfair nature of reality, at least from the exoteric perspective. When you're blind and you don't understand why anything is happening, it does appear as time and chance. And really, that is the default state.
Yes,
But
the
the
default.
events that
Yes,
are highlighted,
that's right.
but the events that are, the supernatural events that are highlighted in the Old Testament, things like Moses parting the Red Sea, the battle where Joshua pauses the movement of the sun and the moon. There are many examples in the Old Testament. People only focus on the pop culture New Testament miracles. Elijah had raised a widow's son from the dead, which, by the way, Freemasonry, the widow's son, not going against that. But there are many miracles where time and chance is overruled. It's overridden. And in these instances, there are examples where King Saul, for example, contacted the witch of Endor to speak to a familiar spirit, a fallen angel, a demon, to learn more about an upcoming battle. And the spirit pretended to be the dead prophet Samuel. But then there are also instances where God's spirit overrides time and chance and helps his people in many different narratives. Samson, for example, being given such powerful strength, Elijah and Elisha being given the ability to prophesy. So the biblical perspective on synchronicities is that they're supernatural events that can be from evil or good.
Interesting.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting take on it. And like a third part, yeah, that makes sense to me. And Austin 108 says, a lot of times they don't mean anything. It generates stuff based on what you think about or lock on your mind. Yes, there is this distinction to be made here between selective observation and cognitive bias and legitimate synchronicity. And for it to be considered a synchronicity, I think it has to correlate your thoughts and what you're seeing externally, and then something else. But it could only be considered such, of course, if it was also corresponding with with your internal process that precedes it. So there's and it's a fascinating topic. But yeah, as far as the source, I'm hesitant to say it's anything more than some part of our own psyche that we don't yet understand, that we're trying to get under control. But
it can be faked. And it can be faked in for example, the predictive programming is on a large scale. People might, as even I used to in the past, attribute it to a supernatural aspect when it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, there's many aspects of the prophets of Baal or people who work for the great deceiver who fake miracles. That's also biblical many times in the Old Testament. So, I did want to get that perspective out there. And with regards to like how your mind actually influences it, it's not the secret. It's not the Kybalion. It's not like, influencing reality. Rather, what it is the spiritual realm, which is described in the Bible, is almost overlapped with our material physical one, but we can't sense it with our senses. An example of this is how the Spirit of God left Solomon's temple before King Nebuchadnezzar came and destroyed it. Much like when we die, the spirit of man returns back to God, and then the body begins to enter rigor mortis or decompose. Right? So first something occurs on the spiritual, and it affects the material. And there's an interplay between the material and the spiritual. They both work off each other. And there was another example I really want to say that was fascinating about, Yakin and Boaz, by the way. I remember you were talking about that in a previous conversation. A lot of secret societies, they have perverted its view as the B and the J, Boaz, Jackin, Batman, Joker even, the Freemasonic Hegelian dialectic, which then are both destroyed and synthesized. In the Bible, it means something totally different, but it's still curious that in the Bible narrative, these two pillars in front of Solomon's temple are destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. That's in the end of the book of Jeremiah. The king of Babylon comes and destroys Yakin and Boaz and captures Judah to bring them to Babylon. It's very curious that the Hegelian dialectic plays off that
Right.
idea, like polarize the masses, destroy both, and synthesize it.
Yep, that's definitely the case here. I didn't know the end story of the pillars. That's a fascinating thing to add to it. And you mentioned you had just watched and did a breakdown on Megalopolis. And you know the end of the movie, the characters are standing between two pillars in Times Square, and the ball is dropping. The ball dropping at midnight on New Year's. That's Sirius, the dog star that reaches its highest point at midnight on New Year's. So they're standing there with the new child and Sirius. And you can find in a lot of the Masonic art, if you look at the Masonic pillars, they often have the two pillars and then the eye between them. And they recreated that scene at the end of Megalopolis. I just thought maybe if you look at that.
Yeah, actually, and I had to rewatch it for my stream when I did a breakdown of it. That's the Saturnalia celebration. If you recall the montage, they had they split up this frame into 3 pillars, and they show a montage of all different religions around the world synchronizing for the Saturnalia. They show like a Quran at one part, they show a Jewish family at one part, they show a Christmas tree. It seems like all around the world, everyone is synchronizing for the Saturnalia, and then the dog star Sirius for the New Year's ball drop, right?
Yeah, which makes the kid born on Christmas, a Christ child. And that was the child for the New Age, and it was the product of the two families. So there's a interesting correlation between that and the whole New Age concept of the child god Horus being a replacement for the old patriarchal system that falls. And Megalopolis' Babylon falling seems to fit into that.
And it's curious that both Joker and Megalopolis end with a child, like an implicate, at least in Joker, fully do is implied, where it was the offspring of Joker. Harley Quinn was carrying that. But in Megalopolis, it ends explicitly with this, if you will, starseed new child that can transcend time, even exceeding Caesar Catalina's power, because time stops and it continues moving. I was having a discussion with Armin Reed, and actually I still don't know what that represents. That is a curious, well, I guess you could probably understand from a story perspective, but I wonder what's the practical meta-scripting for it on the world stage. At one part I was thinking maybe like, I don't know, Baron Trump. There's the thing with the Ingersoll Lockwood books. There's like the Wonderful Adventures of Baron Trump. I really don't know. I don't know what to make of it, how both of those movies end. Both of these concurrent movies that say a lot about our current political climate end with a child, the offspring of the Beast and the Scarlet Woman. Yeah.
That's why I think it's interesting that the child's born on Saturnalia on Christmas, and then they have him in Times Square, the child, and it's the merging of the two families. And I think there's the suggestion here is that it represents the New Age because Caesar replaces the Pledge of Allegiance with the pledge to humanity. And so the child is like representing the New World Order. And Sirius, the dog star, is completely associated with that child in that last scene between two pillars. And it corresponds to Horus, the Age of Horus, the New Age movement based on the idea of the fall of the old Aeon, and then the new Aeon represents this merging of the patriarchal and matriarchal in the androgen child. And so I think that's what it means. And if you look at Harlequin and Joker, you can kind of see the same dynamic as you do between the parents of that child in Megalopolis. But very interesting that they would include that. And even in the movie The Truman Show, when Truman picks up the dog star, he's between two pillars, if you notice, which others have pointed out as well. So,
right. And you said you were reading one of Robert Anton Wilson's book. Was it one about the dog star? When you synchronized, when you saw that in the Truman Show? It's something about the Sirius star is like a beginning of the Gnostic awakening, or
yes,
seeing.
the Cosmic Trigger.
To understand.
Cosmic Trigger, which the whole book, Cosmic Trigger, is about the author's synchronicities leading him to believe that the dog star Sirius is the guide star that is sending transmissions that will awaken your third eye and cause you to see through the illusion. And so I was reading the Cosmic Trigger, and then I saw the Truman Show. So that's why I noticed Sirius. That's why I started taking that movie apart. And then I saw his following movie, Jim Carrey's other movie, The Number 23, which is based on the Cosmic Trigger. They don't name it, but the book, the number 23, is basically the cosmic trigger, and he's having some kind of a breakdown because of it. But yeah, Jim Carrey's movies have contained a lot of esoteric symbolism, and that was really one of the things that got me to look at media the way I do now, is just noticing, hey, there's an esoteric side that the ticket buyers, the regular viewers, are not privy to.
And I will say the greatest thing about your show that has helped me is to see films and news as the same artistic medium. Like it's just a different mode of expressing it. And the actors, when we see like Jim Carrey in these films, he's playing a character, but he's still playing a character when he goes on Jimmy Kimmel and calls out the Illuminati with like a, he does like a hand gesture with the tongue thing. He was making fun of people who are conspiracy theorists. But then now it's getting kind of serious about it too. And then you got Russell Brand converting to Christianity and stuff. It's like we're in a continuous movie. It's not like once the theater projector turns off, now now they're telling us what they really think. It's a continuous play. They're still going. You're still seeing it through your screen, in an interview, in the news. I think you mentioned in the Megalopolis interview, it had Robert De Niro and Spike Lee, right? And Robert De Niro still suffered from Trump derangement syndrome when he was talking next to Francis Ford Coppola. He's just a consistent Trump derangement syndrome character,
And that's okay. So Francis Ford Coppola sitting down with De Niro, already a big deal because his latest movie, Coppola's movie, has the head wound scenario, the Trump scenario, and he has the Godfather series, which has connections as well. But the fact he's sitting down with Robert De Niro, from a metascript perspective, is a big deal. And then Coppola comes out and he says that his movie Megalopolis is prescient and it's gonna come true. The fall of Rome, America as Rome, is gonna happen, he said, in a couple of months. And he laughed. Like, that was a good find, that little clip of him.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say that by accident. So I'm saying, like, what did he... And it's even almost like a 4D theme of the film, because the film is all about time stop, like the design authority, they transcend time. And the trailer, the first words for the trailer of Megalopolis is, there's always been one director who's always been ahead of his time, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, right? So I've been saying to a lot of my audience and others, would not be surprised if Megalopolis and Joker 2 are going to be studied years down the line. You're on what you're doing here. You're doing cutting fringe stuff by studying it right now when the theaters were empty. They've both been lambasted by critics and all that stuff. Looking for the predictive programming now and alerting people so that when the events that it points to are faked or come about in the future, you're not going to be like these YouTubers that like 1 or 2 years down the line are like, whoa, this movie had this scene, and so we'll be doing it before it even happens.
Yes, that's true. See, we brought out concurrent programming, so we have people looking backward at everything in the past. Like Lee's connected here, and we're looking at it as this is a predictive model, so we are cutting fringe because we're looking at what does today's predictive programming say about tomorrow, and we're not trying to convince the normies that the news media is rigged by looking at the past. We're looking at this stuff at the concurrent level, contemporaneous analysis of all media at large, as though there's no separation between entertainment and news, because there really isn't. And that movie Megalopolis, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, it's going to take a long time for everything in it that it's prescient about to come true. But even when it was being shopped around and it was in these film festivals, the opening scene has to do with it has a scene in the trailer with the satellite falling to Earth, hitting New York, this Russian satellite. And as they were screening this thing, a Russian satellite blew up. So even before the movie came out, I knew it was going to contain predictive programming because it was attended by news events that seemed to, I guess, connect it with this bigger picture. But one more thing about that movie.
With the trailer, even.
Main character looks like Neo. And the opening scene, the time control stuff, it's all right out of the movie Dark City. And Dark City was about time control. And the time controllers were called the Strangers, and they were these men in black. And so you mentioned the design authority. In Megalopolis, the design authority are analogous to the Strangers in Dark City, and they can stop time. They control time. And it shows them setting up a 9/11-like event. So what that told me is the design authority equals the metascripters, the ones who are in charge of implementing our fake history. The way they control time isn't science fiction. It's not time machines. It's by implementing history by using fake news and psyops.
Absolutely, because of the George Orwell quote, right? He who controls the current controls the past. He who controls the past controls the future. The connection you made with Caesar Catalina, Adam Driver's character, looking very much like Neo, Lawrence Fishburne giving them the ride around, and there's a parallel with, the Matrix and Neo. In the chat, I had also pointed out that Neo's outfit in Matrix Reloaded looks, suspiciously similar to a Jesuit Cossack. If you see like the way he's dressed in Matrix Reloaded with that kind of more refined cape. In the first movie, it's more like that, I guess, dark school shooter look. But in the second Reloaded, he has that really formal priestly attire. And there's a big element. I mean, I don't want to, my call's already going on for way too long, so I won't do it, but I'll just have you know there's a huge different element about the Jesuit control of our history and their aspect in the design authority, if you will, of our past. In fact, look at our calendar, right? It's a papal Gregorian calendar that the whole world is synchronized on. You don't need to be Christian or Catholic. You're still following, if you're doing business in the world, you're using a papal Gregorian calendar, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And his name's Caesar. There's something, before he died, Jordan Maxwell gave a speech, and he talked about the news and what it all really means. And it's really just the worldview from Caesar's perspective. And he was just going through various newspapers and showing how often the symbolism has the sun, the rising sun. He was making some very interesting connections that connect with Caesar and ultimately time control and the worldview monopoly. And I think that's kind of what the movie was revealing, is the worldview monopolists and how they're rewriting the script and uniting us all on some new big script coming. And every one of these major events, like moon landing, 9/11, 2020, these things synchronize mankind and put us all in the same movie, the same fictional universe. And I think that we're about to go into the next major set. Like, they're changing the stage, basically. They're updating some things. But Megalopolis was about the end of this age, and that baby that we were alluding to represents what comes next.
The new next Aeon, if you will. So anyway, thanks so much, Tim. And yeah.
Hey, and really quick, are you interested in presenting anything or giving a talk, hour or so, at the next Auto Hoax Con? I
definitely want to, but I don't want to mess it up. So I'll have to really, maybe the next one. If I were to ever do a talk at the Auto Hoax Con, I want to make sure it's of the same quality of reverse history or something. I want to make it actually good, because if you've seen my streams, it's very much from the hip. They're not organized at all.
Right, I understand. I'm working on something right now. I have to organize something, but okay, just putting it out there, because I think at some point it would be awesome. You do have a lot of great content and ideas, and you would fit right in with what we're putting together here. So absolutely.
Thanks, Dan. Later.
All right, thank you for the call. Have a great day. Got on a call about synchronicity and talked about time control. And so in Megalopolis, which is Coppola's latest work, the design authority is this shadowy Men in Black-like group that can literally stop time. And it shows this scene reminiscent of 9/11, where they're doing a controlled demolition. That's why the movie wasn't released. That's why they didn't produce it. When 9/11 happened, it co-opted his movie, so he didn't do it. But the movie contains scenes and footage from 9/11/01. So he merged the two. We got into the topic about synchronicity, and I have a few other examples of a type of synchronicity that involves books, where it's really bizarre, but there are times where, I'm reading a book, and it has multiple, a ridiculous number of connections to what I was just thinking about or doing. And one example that I was pretty public about is a book called Country of the Blind, where I was listening to a podcast about General Flynn from Q. And I find this book from the late 80s called Country of the Blind in a Goodwill. It's by somebody named Michael Flynn. And the book is about a secret society that controls history. They control history through some kind of supercomputer that reads all kinds of statistics, and they're able to make predictions and steer society. And the main character is a journalist with this think tank group, and she stumbles across them by accident. So it's kind of like us. But then all of her friends get killed by the group who are trying to protect their secret, and she gets initiated. As the book develops, you find that there's something that she releases to the world called the Q files. And this book's from the 80s, so basically it's like she sends faxes to every newsroom. And the Q files reveals everybody who's involved in scripting the fake news and faking everything in order to steer society. And once their names are out, they all get killed by the angry mobs. So the book is called In the Country of the Blind, Michael Flynn, and the cover has a man with an eye patch and a mushroom cloud behind his head blowing up. But I was thinking about General Flynn. I'm on these live streams, and we started talking about newsbenders and the idea of a secret society controlling history in this way. And I find a book that has themes and specifics and even names that correspond to what we're talking about and doing. And it was so uncanny that it had me rethink this idea of synchronicity again, and has me wondering, well, maybe the information itself. And, you know, it's like you're thinking about something, and maybe, you know, thoughts are a thing. There's some kind of, I'm not saying law of attraction, but there is some kind of attractive power here to your focused thoughts and things out in the world that correspond to it. Like does attract like in some way, because it was just too random, but it was too specific. And I have another even more striking example, really bizarre. I pick up a random book. I didn't read it right away, and the opening page had some very specific significance to me in my life, and I opened it up on a date that corresponded to those events. I have a separate blog for these synchronicities that I'll probably promote here soon. Ted Stryker gifted 10 memberships. So Ted Stryker's here with a box of wrenches. Austin 108. Tony Driscoll, Nick Fingar, Clump, Lazarus, Daniel Morris, Busy 56, and Rafal have all received a blue wrench. You've all received the NFT version of one of these, and at some point, if you have a blue wrench, you will likely be issued one of these as well. And I might actually set up a P.O. box, because like I said, when I had a P.O. box, people sent me things. I had a large collection of wrenches. LG Rhythm says nearly 3 p.m. here. Have to shoot. Thanks, Tim. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. We're going to be back later tonight to do a group chat. Infinite Plane Radio. Hello, caller. If you want to try back. I put Joker on the screen. He says, why so serious? And when they say serious, they mean the dog star. There's a lot of double entendres and meanings behind everything. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, you mentioned synchronicities, like with books and things that you read and stuff like that.
Yes.
I've been having some experiences lately with that kind of stuff. And really looking at it, because it seems like, because I've been doing tarot readings, and it seems like, I used to think that stuff was like giving me guidance or something, and now it really seems like it's just reflecting what my inner world is doing, because it's just like showing me exactly where my head is at that moment. It's not really telling me something different.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's interesting in and of itself. So you're putting down some tarot cards, and it's not predicting or telling you anything, but it's rather telling you or reflecting your inner state.
Yeah, and whatever situation I might happen to be in. Yeah, it's just like reflecting it, like a mirror. It's interesting.
Right.
And I don't know if that's an emergent property, or if that's just the way it always was. I don't think it was. I think it's an emergent thing. And we're just, because we're holding certain ideas in our minds, we're just creating it outside of ourselves. And now those oracles and things are just mirroring what we're already creating within.
I had studied, I first learned tarot symbolism from a group called the BOTA. It was a correspondence course. I was still in the military at the time, and I'd get these things in the mail. And it said that the cards, the first 22 cards, the major arcana from the Fool to the universe, that they called them keys. And they said that these are keys to the subconscious, and that these archetypal images, it claims, are like a ready-made language to communicate with the subconscious, and that all you have to do is look at them. And that's why it emphasizes in this course, they emphasize that you get your own cards and you color them in yourself. Because you have to reinforce, you have to really study these things. But the idea is that you're establishing a language of communication with your higher self when you're looking at these cards. So they call them keys because they're keys to the subconscious, and that they said that the more familiar you are with the cards, the more it becomes a sort of interface.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So, communication with the higher self. That's interesting. I'm going to keep that in mind the next time I do a reading.
I mean, it's highly subjective. Obviously, it's subjective, but the idea here is that if you find any kind of communication, like I said, it's echolocation. You're screeching into the dark, and you're getting some kind of signals back. And if you can adjust to it, it's guidance. I think that's how it works. And I'm not suggesting it's supernatural. It's not like a Ouija board. I'm saying it's communication with the subconscious, and that there's some kind of archetypal forms or symbols or colors, even that things that somehow enable it to facilitate communication.
Well, and I'll tell you, I've actually have a different experience with the I Ching because the I Ching is not quite as subjective. It's actually very precise in human relations, and it just about covers every aspect of human relations you'd ever encounter. And I've actually been getting some really good advice when I don't know what to do to proceed in tricky situations. The I Ching has actually been the go-to for that kind of stuff.
You know, right now I happen to be reading Hermann Hesse's Magister Ludi, the glass bead game. And at this point in the book, the main character has run off to this monastery where he's learning the I Ching. And it says here, he had repeatedly petitioned them for an instructor for a thorough study of the I Ching, and he was told about the elder brother. And he goes through and he memorizes all the 64 hexagrams. He cuts his own stalks, and he begins to use the I Ching as a part of, it says here, it was basically about what we're talking about. But this is the glass bead game. Very interesting book. I haven't finished it, but at the part I'm at right now.
I read it, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, at the part I'm at right now, he's learning the I Ching. He's learning the language.
Okay, I read that book a long time ago, and I didn't remember that. I think I read it before I was using the I Ching, and so I probably didn't even know what they were talking about. That's interesting. Maybe I'll go back and. It seems that the book was kind of obscure. I don't know if I really dialed in. And I know, I've read 2 different Siddharthas by Hermann Hesse, and one of them had a much better translation. Like somebody that was actually spiritually knowledgeable translated one, and then the other one was kind of shallow and not at all as good as the first one. I can't even remember who translated what, but the translation obviously makes a big difference.
Sure. Well, this one, the glass bead game, I mean, I couldn't quite perfectly explain it all, but I'm getting a lot of meta-scripty connotations from it about these masters of the game and what the glass bead game is. So I won't have a full review of it until I've completed it. But it's my first book by Hermann Hesse. I haven't read any of his other works, but it's interesting so far.
Siddhartha was a good book about the Buddha.
Well, okay, so when it comes to the books thing, so the thing that I've experienced with synchronicities, it ties into this, because I've been suggesting that synchronicity isn't like a passive thing, where you're noticing things that your cognitive bias has you tuned into, but rather I think it's an active thing, and that when I'm focusing on a book, on certain narratives or certain repeated themes, I think that's that focus and the imagination. I think that together, the focus and the imagination, sending the message into the dark, like echolocation, I think that is what causes synchronicity. See, I think we're causes of it. I think it's an active thing.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying about the mirror shit and in the tarot. yeah, our mind and where we're at a given moment is the causative. Yes. And you, Tim, because you're because you're so good at really focusing, and you have a really powerful way of just your mind, the way your mind works is very sharp and extreme. And so you would have probably a lot more of that kind of experience than somebody else who wasn't quite as focused on it.
Or I'm just an ape with an overblown ego trying to cope with the meaninglessness of a dead universe, grinding to a halt. Look at this. My third eye. My third eye says, I use my magic 8-ball to make my hard decisions.
Oh my God, the 8-ball. I remember that shit. Oh my God.
The theory is, though, behind synchronicity, anything random can work. You can read the entrails of a bull. If you look at the history of augury.
Yeah, exactly. And even the magic 8-ball. I mean, you could make it. Your mind could make the little floaty thing inside come up. To answer the way you want.
Okay, I have other examples. Like, for example, and it has to do with randomness. Where walking through an old used bookstore. There are times where I sweep my glance across these books, and in the gestalt, sometimes certain things pop out, and I've had many instances where that's how precognition can manifest. That's how it's all about. To me, everything's information. Everything is meaningful. The universe is made of meaning, not atoms. It's made of meaning.
It's all information. Absolutely. It's everything. Every little bit is information. Exactly. And, the book thing, I think a lot of that has to do with you are willing to let go and use your intuition to guide you. And you're not thinking at all when you're doing that. You're just allowing input from the universe to come through. And like the I Ching right now, I'm not tossing coins or anything to do I Chings. I open the book randomly and then I intuit. There's 6 changeable numbers after each reading, and I just intuit the changeable number. And today I opened it up, but before I even opened the book, I had a really strong feeling that I wanted number 6. And I opened it and read number 6, and it exactly addressed the situation that I was needing some guidance for.
Yeah, that's called.
It just popped in. It just pops in. Yeah. That's
fascinating. Bibliomancy or something. Now, someone asks here, is there a way to induce synchronicity? Yes. I think it's choices. See, I think that when you are an agent, when you have agency, when you make a decision, every decision is almost for all intents and purposes a different path. And so it's the choices you make at the level of the individual, at the I, as a being with an independent will. I think the choices you make, you are more or less opening the door, and whether or not your will is able to bring about the results you want, I think it depends really on your level of concentration and focus. I don't think
concentration and focus.
That's a huge part of it.
Well, what's that? I'm sorry.
The concentration is a huge part of it. Like, I think it's a very active thing.
Well, it is. It's totally active, but I will add to that. When I was learning how to use my intuition and let go of the logical mind, it was a learning process. And one of the big things I had to do was sort out all the voices that were trying to steer me certain ways. And it takes a while to figure out what voice is what, what's leading you astray, what's your logic, what's your ego. And so there's a learning curve to using the intuition, and you kind of have to be a scientist and really pay attention to your, like you said, choices, and then you pay attention to the outcome of your choice. And so there's you have to follow through and really pay attention to, and especially, all right, so you're let's say you're at a crossroad, and you as a scientist, you say, all right, I'm going to make this choice, and I am going to see what result it brings. And so when you start doing that and you get consistent with it, you'll start to be able to sort out the different voices in your head and which ones you need to listen to. So it takes some time as far as synchronicity go. And I think the intuition, as you're saying, focus, you need to be focused, you need to follow through, and you've got to be able to identify intuitive nuances and little downloads. They're very fast. It's just a flash in your head, and you see a flash of some picture or something, and you think it's just some passing thought. You don't know. And I've started to really be able to, because they come in like right when you're thinking of what you want, the flash comes. And it's so fast that it's really easy to ignore or blow off or not pay attention to. So, yeah, and that's focus again, like you said.
You know, there's
that's the process.
a movie I watched because somebody here recommended it. It's called Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And one of the ideas in this movie is that you always have in front of you the realm of possibilities. And if you are very passive, the next moment is going to logically follow from what came before. No surprises. And nothing changes, unless there's some kind of will change on your part, some decision. And in this movie, in order to reach very remote possibilities, the main character had to do very unlikely things. Some of it was really strange, but she had this like connection to this interdimensional control center that would basically give her, this is what you have to do in order to access this particular reality. Now it looked insane. The movie was kind of it was very eccentric and science fiction-y, but I think it kind of explains some of the basic theories behind magic. And what it has to do with is accessing remote possibilities. And you can't see, like let's say the next moment ahead of you, you can see a few things that might be possible. Maybe you can't exactly see straight ahead of you how this remote possibility can be made manifest, but your intuition, which isn't so bound to the now, might have the path. It might navigate that labyrinth for you. And that's why I kept on going to that book Labyrinth, and the idea of the understanding what the labyrinth represents. It represents, I think, the realm of possibilities, and that the Minotaur is the uncontrolled part of yourself in that thing. And that if you can access or connect with your subconscious, your intuition, then you might have a little more creative control. You might have a little more insight and might be able to access the improbable and make it probable. But that was the premise of Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and I kind of agree with it in many ways. Because if I'm correct, and the universe doesn't exist until we experience it, then our thinking about things has everything to do with it. And I'm not saying belief creates reality, but I think we do live in a cybernetic system that is in some way under our influence, and it's beyond just our meat suit influence. I think we're influencing it at a programming level, at a source code level, in some sense. If that makes sense. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's something that I can't rule out, because how else do you explain synchronicity without defaulting to pathology?
Right, and it's what you're experiencing. And so, I mean, even though it doesn't make sense, if you're experiencing something, then you got to look at it. So, yeah, that everywhere all at once. Oh, and that actually plays into something you said. You said you were more likely to experience synchronicities when you went out of your usual routine. And that sounds like exactly what you're saying with that Everywhere All at Once movie.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Doing
Yes.
something improbable. Yeah.
Breaking the routine. A really good example of this, breaking the routine and the power of that, is that movie Free Guy, where everybody's an NPC, and then he starts breaking his routine. And at first, he just wears a different suit. But every time he activates his will and he makes a choice and he breaks from the program, he gets closer and closer to seeing the simulation he's in. This is a reoccurring theme in many movies where reality holds firm out of habit and conditioning, but that in order to access the improbable, one has to break that. And the theory behind like chaos magic, for example, is in breaking these patterns of thought and of course behaviors, but thought patterns. Like, are you holding a false worldview in place? And there's a lot of power in breaking a confining or a wrong worldview, because the worldview we've been given automatically excludes intuition.
Yeah, I like that idea of breaking habitual thought patterns. I'm freaking doing that right now. So it's intense. And, just really listening to those negative loops that play in your head. They're very subtle, a lot of times, and they're really getting in the way of shit. And so, yeah, I'm having to come back to some more one-pointed meditation practices and things like that because I've been distracting myself too much. So, yeah, and it just sounds like a lot of people are going through that kind of thing where and one of the YouTube creators I listen to that just has like positive things that he talks about and, you know, planetary shit and stuff like that. He's saying he was getting a lot of comments from people that they were on roller coaster type energies right now, which I am too, that were like triggering really old traumas from childhood that hadn't been triggered for a really long time. And so you think they're not there anymore. And then all of a sudden circumstances happen where there's these triggers that come up and it's like, wow, holy fuck, that's still there. Okay. Time to freaking start.
We were talking about, in the last deep think tank, we were talking about memories and how remarkable it was that when people saw the Trump shooting, a lot of them immediately went to the movie Breaking Bad series where the guy got his ear cut. And I thought, well, who's thinking about a TV show they watched 15 years ago? And it just shows you how powerful the associations are. That your memory is really good, and the programmers know this, so they plant their post-hypnotic suggestions.
Well, not only that, but it's good to look at that kind of thing applied to your personal life and how our memories from, you know, childhood on are probably always going to affect us. I mean, they've created who we are in a way. So it's good to be aware of that kind of thing. And yeah, memory, wow. And that was one of the things that the guy that I was listening to talked about too. He goes, most of the time we are living in the past, reliving things that have happened, things people say, things we say, and it ends up really clouding the way that we think and obscuring clarity and, you know, clear thought, and then choices from there.
Well, we got cradle to grave, MK Ultra mind control programming. You know, you're born into it, and unless you step outside of the box, you know, you're always going to have your perspective skewed, and it's going to be from what they put in front of you, their filter. And their filter says that we're just evolved apes with big egos trying to cope with the meaninglessness of everything by making up stuff or assuming that our lives matter more, that we have more control than we do. And, you know, we're given a very almost pessimistic and misanthropic view of ourselves that reduces us to the meat suit and eliminates the spiritual components as vestiges of some ignorant age or something.
Keep the humans disempowered, ignorant of their own inner power and abilities. That's the name of the game. And so that's why these things like what you're mentioning, the chaos magic stuff, is so valuable, because and like Free Guy, you just do a little thing to break up your routine. And I think, you know, if you can be consistent by being non-consistent, I think at least it's a start. It's a way to start, getting a clearer view about what's really going on in your own life and the people around you.
Sure. We mentioned earlier, we were talking about Robert Anton Wilson and how he's, you know, the writer of that Cosmic Trigger. And it talks about the idea of the dog star and the synchronicities he was having that led him to conclude it was the star of like awakening, and it was sending some kind of signals or something. But he and some other writers of that publishing company wrote extensively about this idea of breaking patterns and testing out different worldviews. And it's pretty easy to see. We're looking at worldview warfare. It shouldn't be so easy to categorize people. We shouldn't be able to say this person's a woke, this person's a truther, this person's a normie, and know all of their opinions. But we do. We can. And that's because they are in this compartmentalized box. And you can't really see it without stepping outside of it. And that's what I mean by, you know, breaking the pattern is stepping outside of your presuppositions and asking, well, what if? I've always liked science fiction for that reason, especially some of the older speculative stuff, not the stuff today that's all based on dystopianism. But I've always liked the idea of asking, what if?
Well, that's a really good point about not putting people in boxes. That's really good, Tim. That's something that is just so easy to do, and we just got to stop doing it. I mean, and I do it too, and I've been working for quite a while, and I still haven't made a whole lot of progress. And not judging people as you see them, because if you get to know people, you realize that when you see somebody just for a few minutes or whatever, you have such a narrow view of what their real life really is and how complicated they are and what they have going on. It's just so easy to simplify and dumb down everything. And I guess part of, how people are pretty much overwhelmed right now just plays into all of that. And then they just have a really shallow surface view of everybody else, rather than realizing that everybody has a whole extreme life. Not everybody, maybe, but.
Well, that's why I like Free Guy. Free Guy, the movie, it's Ryan Reynolds, if you can handle him. But the movie was making the case that if you're not activating your will, if you're just going with the program, you're an NPC. And NPC has the illusion of freedom, and they're all controlled by this, CEO at the top of the free city. But it wasn't until Free Guy broke their paradigm by showing that there's more land, interestingly enough, that they were able to disconnect from their program. And so, I think that we're trained to be Truman we're all in our own Truman shows, and we all reinforce each other's Truman shows, and it's all based upon the big construct. Like Christoph said, we accept the reality of the world we've been presented with, and they presented us with a world where we have certain God constructs, an eschatology, a creation myth, and very few people look at it from outside that box, because there's no alternatives, there's no platform for it. But here we are, stepping outside of it. And someone said this is like outsider art, and I agree. This is outsider media.
Yeah, I agree. Who is that caller?
The last caller, I think we had a few today. Let me scroll up.
Good. I don't know if have I heard that guy before? Has he been in the VCs or something? He sounded familiar, but he's very articulate. He's very enjoyable to listen to. I can see why you wanted to try to get him.
Oh, Leo. Yeah, he's called a few times, and he's very active in our Gilded server, Leo Pirate.
Okay. All right, cool.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for the
great.
call. We appreciate it. Always interesting talks, and we are going to be doing an IPR deep think tank episode shortly after this, and that's going to be like a 1-hour group chat. So if you can make it, you can make it. I'll send out notifications, but otherwise, appreciate you calling in.
All right, thanks, Tim. I love talking about this stuff, so have a good one.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, there are points where we get into auto-hoaxing reality, auto-hoaxing time. I mean, we're focused on various levels of this deception, and I think it makes sense that if a deception is designed to confine you physically by working your mind, what about the next level up? Is there a spiritual component to it? Lean Dion says, in Westworld, the ones the AI couldn't manage were called the outliers. That's fascinating. Outliers, I like that. But yeah, as far as like the boxes though, see, we shouldn't be in boxes, but we put ourselves into boxes. And the people who we call NPCs or blue pillars or red pillars or wokesters, I don't use these terms to denigrate people, but rather to describe them from their worldviews and their perspectives, so you can actually understand them and know where they're coming from. And I think it's kind of important to be able to navigate the world stage in this way. Like when you say certain buzzwords, it's going to hit somebody on the left completely different than the right, and then the normies are going to just give you a blank stare. So it's useful though. I look at this also as a form of anthropology. We're alien anthropologists, examining the competing paradigms in what appears to be some kind of a global religious war. Okay, just a quick recap. Corey Haim might be alive, might be in a band, might be Dash Hutton in a band called Haim. Very interesting. Messianic Charlatan found this, and he deduced this just from the name Haim, and that is an uncanny likeness. And I haven't seen Corey Haim. I couldn't, but when I saw this, I thought that's Corey Haim, and I'm thinking that he hit the nail on the head with this one. And if this is true, if Dash Hatton is Corey Haim, then Charlie Sheen does not exist. And Corey Feldman is a greater actor than any of us ever expected or suspected. Roxy W says, in Brave New World, they were called savages. Interesting. We should use that imagery. I try to use imagery to describe what we are and what we do. The penguin as our mascot was chosen specifically because we were talking about the idea of the Earth being flat or round, this debate. It's debatable. And if anybody knows, it would be the penguins because they're at the bottom of the ball. Or at the perimeter of the flat plane and the area that we're allowed to wander around in. So if anybody would know the state of the world, it would be the penguins. Moreover, the penguins are at the fringe. However you look at it, they're at the fringe. So you want to just keep going and going. That's who you reach. So in a way, they're kind of like insider-outsiders. They're insiders to the big question, but also outsiders because they're so far out there. And they exist in a very harsh environment that's cold and dark. And I look at ice as a symbol of secrecy and darkness as a symbol of ignorance. And the way that the penguins keep warm is they conspire, like conspiracy theorists. They sit around in a circle and they breathe, and it heats up a pocket of air, and they rotate around it. And I look at that as our conversation pushing back against the cold, the ice of censorship, the darkness of ignorance. And they are also the deepest diving of all birds, the emperor penguins. And the water, the sea of irrelevance, is something that we're frequently diving into. And then, of course, we have the raft atop the sea in which everyone else is submerged. So that the penguin just matches for a lot of reasons. And then lately I've gone with the cyborg penguin because they have reached the singularity. They have taken charge of their own evolution. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, caller?
Hi. I don't know if you remember me from about 5 years ago. My name was True Jitsu.
True Jitsu, yes. Rings a bell.
Yeah. I made a couple of videos. Anyway, it culminated into I had a beef with Jaron because there was this document that was circulated around that said that globe earthers were getting paid to make globe earther anti-flat earth videos. And anyway, Jaron first exposed it, then went back on it and kind of made himself look like a big idiot. But I knew a guy, Scientific Lee, who got the same information and just decided not to make the videos. He was a globe earther as well. So I knew that this was true, and Jaron was going back on it. So I posted, FBI.gov, report this guy. Because this was an official document from the FBI.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the Earth-shape field agents. So there was like this.
Yeah.
There was some high-profile, very popular anti-flat earther, and somebody on his live stream saw a piece of paper, and it seemed to have a heading from somewhere in D.C., had some lawyer's name, and it said something about the pay structure for Earth-shape field agents. And that went kind of viral among our group, and everyone was saying, hey, look, these agents are all getting paid by some guy in DC to promote these videos. And yeah, then came the cover-up, where they said, no, they meant for us to see that, and it was a joke. They said it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
Because they didn't expose it. They didn't.
No,
it was not a joke.
well, I mean, I don't know for sure. It's hard to know anything, but like a guy I know scientifically who I followed because him and Theorio Apophysis would go back and forth, but scientifically, admittedly, went a little crazy. But he told me that he got the same offer to make anti-flat Earth videos. He just decided not to take it. So that's the information that led me to be like, hey, I'm going to post this FBI.gov. Well, I did that. They deleted my channel. I had a channel that had a few videos on there. The popular one was, will the real Native Americans please stand up? I remember you liked it. And, but anyway, then at the same time, people came to my mom's house where no one knew I was staying. She stays at like a retirement place. And they took pictures of my vehicle. And I know that because the old lady that lives next door told me. And then my mom got freaked out and kind of kicked me out of there. But it's like kind of a who knows situation. But that's like in my mind, like there's people like Jaron out there that are very suspect.
Look, it's like no one will believe it. It's gaslighting. It's Kafkaesque. No one's going to believe you if you say that the government is trying to shut me up. Or and so like I'm like fortunate. We're fortunate here that one of our channel's main antagonists was doxxed, and it turns out he's in the White House press corps, and that he was deliberately assigned to screw with our channel. And I have other examples where my life has been tampered with many times. So I don't doubt what you say at all, but it's like you can't prove it, but it's there, and I'm not paranoid. And we have the receipts here. But yeah, it's kind of interesting about Jaron because the fact that he presented ISS transits and he's using the right file that all the pro-globe side uses means that he's on the other side. And a lot of people have a hard time grasping that. Like, Jaron is somehow compromised, or he's a federal informant. He works with NASA. Yeah, he's an Earth-shaped field agent, and he's on the other side. Like, that shouldn't be hard to accept, but they get mad because they have loyalties. And I think that's one of the purposes to having controlled opposition agents is they want your loyalty to get in the way of you seeing clearly whenever they're diverging from the facts.
Well, yeah, definitely. It works. You know, I don't know. Like for me, I just kind of I kind of shrunk away from it for a while, and I remember your name, and I searched you up, probably 6 months ago, just 'cause I was interested in what was going on, and now I've been listening for the last few months. And it's pretty much the same stuff, but it's interesting how everything's evolved as well.
Yeah, I think it's evolved in a lot of ways, at least for those of us who've stepped outside of the controlled box. And the flat Earth topic got really stagnant after we stopped instigating. We kept instigating. We pushed a lot of things forward. We made it go viral outside the YouTube echo chambers, especially with Mad Mike. But after 2020...
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, it's like all the sentiment, all the thought that went into this topic all got diverted into anti-vax. And I said, okay, flat Earth is basically a non-issue now. It's not even generating enough interest to get anybody to even go to the Antarctica. And now you have many people being offered trips to Antarctica and they're turning it down, which makes no sense to me.
I think a lot of people also just were in a position like me where they're like, okay, people are going to obviously see this now with the COVID, the 19 stuff. And it's just nothing, like there was not a response like I'd like to see. And so it was a little disheartening. So I think a lot of people did just kind of dip out.
Yeah, what happens is they get rerouted. I call it, this is a political horseshoe theory, where they're going in the right direction, but then they listen to these voices, and these voices are like, yeah, you're right about this. This is a conspiracy, but Trump is the savior, or these political positions are the correct ones. And so they get dragged into the political warfare, which nullifies them as free thinkers, as skeptics, as even being seekers. And so we lost a lot of them to the Psy-War, many Psy-War casualties. That's what happened. But what we're doing this time around is we are setting up the parallel media. It's a platform for skeptics, for auto-hoaxers, fakeologists, and we're only going to include this perspective, and all the non-skeptical types aren't going to be a part of it. So I'm thinking that if we grow on this basis, we might actually get somewhere in the future.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to what people, think. Obviously, coming up, I feel it growing, but there's a lot of things that are obviously kind of frustrating about it. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing. I think it's growing.
It's funny how it works, because a lot of people now, millions probably, are saying, yeah, Trump's ear wound was fake. But out of those millions, only a handful can properly contextualize that information. Like, if it's fake, then what? If it's fake, then the fireman's not dead. If that's true, and you just follow this line of thinking, the Secret Service were in on it, but they weren't in on an assassination attempt, they were in on the hoax. And then it has implications for both sides of the media being complicit in a magic trick. And it gets to be more interesting to me, because we have evidence that there is a conspiracy, that this world is run by a conspiracy to control all minds that has been doing so successfully. It's not even a conspiracy. It's just government and how it really works and what media really is.
Yeah, I appreciate your optimism. It's definitely a help to me, because like I said, I got out of it for a while. I got really lost because it was kind of like, okay, people showed up at my door. I don't really know if it's true or not. I got to take some crazy old lady's word for it. But then everything else that happened, my channel got deleted.
I don't know. When I started my channel, before I started Infinite Plane Society, I just started talking. I had a flip phone at the time. It was just like a Galaxy or something. But I was working at a grocery store, and one night I was watching all these videos, Flat Earth and stuff, and I started looking at the NASA videos and the rockets, and I started making these connections. And it occurred to me that the symbolism within NASA is compatible with what I've seen in New Age and occult symbolism, paganism, mystery, Babylon. I made those connections, and I uploaded a video about it. The next day I was at work, and while I was on break, someone left a book for me at the register I was at. And my manager said, yeah, some older gentleman left this book for you, and it has no UPC code. It's not from our store. And I thought, that's weird. So I look at the book, and it's called Spaceman by Mike Massissimo. It was an uncorrected proof. So I got a copy of this astronaut's yet to be published book, and someone had it hand delivered to me. And I thought, that's weird, because I just started speaking about NASA on YouTube, suggesting that it was all a hoax. And within 24 hours, I have this book mysteriously put into my hands. And I don't think I was connecting too many dots. I mean, I was also visited at the same time. I say visited. A couple individuals with these torches on their suit, IAS, International Association of Scientologists, came through. One of them said my name. And that night, I went to a friend's house, and the next day she said to me, hey, Scientologist left some pamphlets under my doorknob. Not in her mailbox, not mailed to her, but at her doorknob. And they should have known her address. So there have been times where I feel like I've been stalked, and they want me to know. Like, they want me to know that they're...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's hard to say, I try to just go with the skeptical angle, partly from kind of listening to the show, where just like, it's whatever. Whatever's the most skeptical, I try to go with that. Just like I try to go with whatever outward theory. But it does, it gets unsettling when it's like it's happening so close to you.
Well, the best thing we can do is mob up. If all your friends carry big blue wrenches, that's how we started the channel. You mob up, and you form a wall, and they have to stalk. They can't stalk us all.
True. I used to have a giant blue wrench from when I used to work construction. We just happened to paint our wrenches blue, so I had one from. I lost it, but
Yeah, well, you are in the Blue Wrench Lodge,
no, I was
and
spiritual.
we call it the Blue Wrench Lodge because it was the moderator wrench that allowed this think tank to even exist. As I'm sure you recall, I mean, you've been listening. This is true.
Yeah, no,
true.
and I appreciate getting a blue wrench. My name right now is Josh Lebsock. I try to tune in whenever you get on.
Very good. Well, hey, I appreciate you calling in. I always like first-time callers, especially if you've been listening for years, because there's a silent majority of IPS members who have never called in, but who have left comments or even just flies on the wall. But everybody here counts, and I think we're vastly underestimating the number of people who are very close to stepping off the world stage. The off-world stage perspective has infinite space compared to the small, constrained, shrinking universe of ideas on the world stage. But I think that we have a great number of people who are that close, and I think there's a desire for it. This is a philosophical question and a philosophical breakdown of our worldview that I think a lot of people want. So I think that we have a bright future ahead. I'm super optimistic about it.
Well, I really appreciate you taking my call. I think I'm definitely part of that silent majority. Or I don't know if it's a majority, but there's a silent lot of us that are listening out there but haven't spoken up or have, or we're half in, half out just because circumstance.
Right. Well, glad to have you here, though. Everyone counts, and I appreciate you calling in. So call back anytime. True Jitsu.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome caller. And yes, we do have evidence that the government agents have messed with us. Lean Dion says the world stage is finite and limited. And it has an expiration date. They control time and space. That's why Saturn is so heavily represented in this whole thing. Saturn, limitation, time, matter, the material world. That was true Jitsu. Yeah, we've been doing this for years, and we've maintained a consistency, and we've maintained our standards. And it was all through the wrench. It was all through mods. Yeah, D-Live shows 2,400 subs. Our previous D-Live channel that they pulled had 3,000. See, for about 3 years, we had 4 years, we had a non-stop 24/7 live stream. And at the time, D-Live was passively earning, and it was covering a lot of the bills. And I would like to bring that back. The 24/7 stream has kind of been replaced by the Gilded, but we could get it going again. We will soon. It's inevitable. But I think we are underestimating it. I know that there's the big box that everyone's minds are in, but there's a huge demand. I think there's a vacuum that has to be filled. There's a huge unrecognized demand right now for this area of thought that would previously have been taken up by objectivism or even atheism. And I don't mean atheism in the sense that people use it today, because I don't think there are any atheists. You look at someone like Richard Dawkins. No, their religion is scientism, nasatology. They have many god constructs and superstitions and hyperstitions. They believe in a lot of fake things. So you couldn't rightly call them atheists. They're not using it properly. But what I'm talking about is the idea that if we look at the world stage as a model, not the territory, and we examine its god constructs, we can basically critique or debate the existence of these god constructs as atheists would debate superstitions or supernatural concepts and ideas. So what we're doing is we're bringing about a form of skepticism and informed disbelief into a world of compulsory belief and competing belief systems. So we are like the non-believers in this thing. And there are a lot of people who would constitute non-believers in the state religion. If the state religion is mass media and you don't believe it, where does that put you? Alt media is alternate to the mainstream, alternate beliefs, but what about non-believers who want to know what's really going on? It's never been platformed, and that's, again, the void that we are filling. And I think more than ever now, our perspective is needed, and it will be recognized as needed because the fact of the fakery getting so good. Isn't it interesting how Elon Musk in the last 2 weeks has said that these videos from space look like CGI? He is saying that because we say it, and we know it's true, and it is true. He says it looks like CGI, but it's not. So he agrees with us that it looks like CGI. He took that weapon away from us, and he just brushed over it with, but it's not. So now we no longer have a point when we say space looks fake, because even the space fakers agree it looks fake. Peter W. says, one world religion equals spinning globe. Yes. Yeah, I would say so. The worldview that we've been given, that has us all on the same sheet, puts us all beneath the same God constructs and puts us in an alternate reality game with all the same presuppositions and the hyperstitions. Okay, well, we've had some great callers tonight. Just want to say thanks again for everyone who called in. Look at this. Tesla caught using a lazy video editing trick to make autonomous robots look more capable. Imagine that. Tesla is using video fakery to make it appear that their robots can do things they cannot really do in real life. Now, imagine if he did the same thing with space and rockets. So here you have the android Optimus walking around a room. Now, what's the problem here? A lot of people are amazed by this. Truthers are scared of this because they think it's a Terminator. But what is the truth about it? The truth of it is, Tesla releases a flashy video of Optimus, a humanoid robot in action, wandering the company's halls, picking up boxes, climbing stairs, pouring drinks. But there's one detail you may have missed. That detail is, the footage has been sped up to make the robot look more capable than it really is. So they sped it up to make it look more capable. It would almost be like taking footage of a rocket launching and then reversing it to make it look like it's landing. Like, this is trickery. But my question to you is, or to those who believe in the outer space videos that he says look like CGI, if you believe those are real, because, you know, I guess what I'm asking is, would it be too far of a stretch to think that a guy that would lie about his robots would lie about his rockets? Or are we to assume that everything with space is just unimpeachable? No way he would fake space, but he'll fake his robots. It's the same person. Messianic Charlatan says Corey Haim's final movie was called Crash, close to Haim's Dash. Interesting. Tomanoid says better than the last time they put that poor dancer in the robot suit. Yeah, Boston Dynamics has released a lot of videos without telling people it's fake, and then people run with it thinking it's real. I just think it's interesting that Musk gets called out for faking his robots, but they'll never call him out on faking space. It's a very powerful spell they've cast. Okay, I think we've gone through most of the notes. Went on a little longer than I'd anticipated, but there's just so much to talk about, and also we have a lot of great callers and comments. We have nearly 200 people listening here, more on the audio stream, but between all the video channels, and I think our numbers are improving, and they're going to continue to go up, and the replays are also going up. Spotify is going up, so our numbers are going up. So if you're listening on any replay, on Spotify, on any of the podcast platforms, and you want to be involved in the chat, just go to ips.monster. That's our mission statement. IPS must become a monster, and that's the Kraken that you often see here. So if you go to ips.monster, you get all the live links, access to Discord, Gilded, all the relevant links. I have Amazon. I have apparel on Amazon, as well as books. But keep scrolling down. You'll also see TuneIn, Audible, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Spotify. So all the relevant links. And I'm going to add a bio on here pretty soon as well. But I'm going to put a link below. If you haven't signed up for ips.monster, you get live stream notifications. And also the archives will show up there as well. And there's still a lot I haven't gone through on the Discord server. I'll have to catch up on the last 12 hours here. A lot of great cutting edge, cutting fringe research. So Gilded is where the research is at. Discord is where we have the voice chats. And the next live voice chat's going to happen tonight. So get on the newsletter so you don't miss that when I send out the live stream notification. I say thanks again, everyone, for showing up. This is Symbia, Auto Hoaxology, and I'm going to put a link to this track below. See you later on.
Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, auto hoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading out of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, out of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading out of hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I stab the backs of deceivers, demanding burdens for the proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading auto hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, auto hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading out of hoaxology, suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing, crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death